Good evening, everyone. It's Thursday, September 15th, 2016, calling the Hingham Board of Selectmen meeting to order. First item on the agenda is approval of the minutes, and I will accept a motion to approve the minutes of May 12th, 16th, May 12th, June 16th, June 23rd, July 7th, July 21st, August 4th, September 1, 2016, as amended.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Good. Next, public comment. Anybody have anything they want to pipe in about? Okay, let's get right to then. We have a couple of housekeeping matters. Do we have somebody from Verizon here? Nobody from Verizon. Okay, well, we've got a couple of requests. One is to approve a petition with respect to a pole at 24 Foley Beach Road. Harry, if I could just jump in here. This is signed by you, so I'm inviting you to give us a thumbnail sketch if you'd be so kind. Looks like you're just moving it down 100 feet or so?
Yeah, I viewed both locations for both poll requests.
Okay.
And didn't look like it was going to have any impact on the surrounding areas. It's just a matter of putting new poles in and restringing the wires.
Okay, we're talking about 24 Foley Beach Road and 48 Howe Street?
That's correct.
All right. Is anybody here from that neighborhood? Just. All right. Well, in that case, why don't we just get right to the motions? Paul, would you be kind enough to do the first one?
Sure. Make a motion to approve the petition of Verizon New England Incorporated to relocate, install, and maintain a new telephone pole identified as pole P10 in the vicinity of 24 Foley Beach Road. This new telephone pole will be relocated approximately 10 feet northwesterly of its current location and will be approximately 123 feet northwesterly from existing pole P9 and approximately 108 feet southwesterly from pole P11. This new pole will be set in a safe manner and not to interfere with any travelways, walkways, or bicycle paths. This relocation is necessary in order to accommodate the reconstruction of a driveway at 24 Foley Beach Road. This approval is subject to the stipulation of the Department of Public Works, including letter dated August 4, 2016.
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Make a motion. Oops. Yep, I'm just looking for my vote list. Sorry about that, lot of paper. Make a motion to approve the petition of Verizon New England, Inc. to relocate, install, and maintain a new telephone pole identified as pole P10 in the vicinity of 48 Howe Street. This new telephone pole will be relocated approximately 37 feet southwesterly of its current location and will be approximately 162 feet southwesterly of the center line of Whiton Ave. This new pole will be set in a safe manner and not to interfere with any travelways, walkways, or bicycle paths. This relocation is necessary in order to accommodate the reconstruction of a driveway at 48 Whiton Ave. This approval is subject to the stipulation of the Department of Public Works, including letter dated August 4th, 2016.
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, is Representative Bradley outside by chance, or are we going to do a couple more things? Okay. I see Farmers Market in the audience, and we have a vote here, so I'm not to refer to you as the Farmers Market, Mark, but just kind of move it along. You want to use Station Street as opposed to the bathing beach for this particularized day?
Yes.
Why don't you just give us a fill-in?
Mark Cullings, 44 Spring Street, president of the Hingham Farmers Market. Every year since the Farmers Market has been at the bathing beach on the third weekend in September, Hingham Nursery School conducts a touch a truck fundraiser, which is I think their biggest event. They outpoint us by seniority, so we have for the last number of years used the Station Street parking lot. We'd like to do that again this year. It's been very successful. But I also want to point out that when we're not at the bathing beach, people will say, oh, well, summer's over, the market's over. Hingham Farmers Market goes until Thanksgiving, so we'll be back at the bathing beach in 2 weeks.
Okay. Anybody want to chat? I'll entertain a motion that the board vote to grant permission to the Hingham Farmers Market for use of Station Street parking lot on September 24, 2016.
So moved.
Second.
All's in favor? Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, Mark.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Mark.
Mark. Good to see you.
Okay. All right, well, just trying to... 2 Seal Cove Road. Anybody here from 2 Seal Cove Road? Okay. Would you join us? Introduce yourselves.
Hi.
Hi.
Good evening.
Welcome. How you doing?
are you? Would you be kind enough to introduce yourselves? And
Sure. My name is Trevor Graham. This is my wife Liz. We're the owners.
And Mike Colclaw from Colclaw Construction, building the house.
All right. And it's my understanding that you're here to request a street opening permit so you can tie into your recently constructed home with utilities. Is that
That's correct.
essentially it? Mr. Sylvester, can you give us any background on what's going on here that would lead to this?
I received a request for I think it was a gas service at first, sometime in July for this home, which I denied. Maybe it was the beginning of August. We had reconstructed Seal Cove Lane, Seal Cove Road, the whole neighborhood. And then I received another request for a permit for the water service hookup, which was denied as well. I received a call from Mr. Colclaw stating that they needed access to water. Said the only way to get water service was ask board's looking for a waiver. Since then I've had conversations with the homeowners, and they're saying they need water to move into their home. They're under some, you could probably describe it better than I could, but I said once the water service, if the board of selectmen grants you the permission for a waiver on the regulation, then we issue a permit. We would cover certain specifications for reconstructing of the road from the utility cuts. I said whether it's 1 cut or 2 cuts, the gas company cut, which isn't as long as the water cut, because the water cut's got to go quite across the road, that they'd be responsible to, repair the road in kind on the specifications, which they agreed to do if they get approval tonight. So that's the long and the short of it. I guess they're ready to move in, they just need water.
All right.
I might add, Paul, since this was scheduled for the agenda, I looked back over some of the records, and over the last 3 years, we've gone by over 1,400 house lots and residence homes. And this is the first one that has come to us that they can't move into their home without a utility. I think that's a pretty good average. Since then, we've met with Tom and the building commissioner, and I guess henceforth we're going to put a copy of the 5-year plan as well as 5-year moratorium roads in the building package, so any vacant lots or any renovations of any homes, this way forward, they'll know exactly where they stand as far as the road condition goes.
All right. I think at this point, it would do a little good to engage in any kind of recriminatory conversation with anybody. However, I think your proposal with respect to going forward to prevent something like this from reoccurring is a sound one. And, you know, in light of the fact you need water to move in, we can accomplish this. I invite my colleagues to weigh in on this view, but you know, we do have this policy in place because any kind of cut into the roadway compromises it. From what I'm told from Mr. Sylvester, you know, it can be done, but in a way that minimizes the damage to the roadway by an opening to it. You know, I don't really look at the homeowner so much as I do other factors, but I'll hold my peace.
I had a couple questions,
Sure,
if I could. Are you new to Hingham?
Yes.
I just want to say welcome, and I'm sorry that we're kind of getting to meet you under these circumstances, but we're glad you're here. My question, Mr. Kolkla, I understand that you're a builder in Hingham.
Yes.
You do a lot of building in Hingham. You're aware of the road moratorium. I went into the building department, and there's a board, and it says, "Take notice, no street opening." And that's been up for years, and I imagine that you're in there. And I guess my question is, how was how did we come to get here? Because I think in many cases the homeowners rely on their team, and I realize you're only one member of the team, but especially folks who are new to Hingham, they rely, and some of the reason that they get local people to work on projects is to help them navigate unique circumstances like this. So I'm looking for a little information.
And moving forward, we obviously will look into that. We weren't aware of the board, that note on the board.
Are you aware of the street? I mean, the moratorium's been in place for quite a while.
Yep. No, Steve, he's my brother, speaking for him tonight. He applied for the permit. In between applying for the permit and the permit being granted, the street was paved. And he did not see that sign up on the corner of the board, and he wasn't aware of it. Moving forward, he's definitely going to ask that question. He has a checklist, and that will be added to that checklist. And we've been doing it for 32 years. It's never happened.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate.
You know, because I think that the town, you know, we as a town, we try to take a lot of steps to make sure there's a lot of communication between people. But, you know, there is responsibility that that the homeowners and the folks who work for the homeowners share, because when a road gets cut and we have to then patch it compromises the road, and then that becomes the responsibility of all of the taxpayers of Hingham. And, you know, the reason that this is sort of sensitive to me is that last year in the fall, we had a number of people who came before this board several times with pictures, really pushing us to invest money in our roads and pointing out that when we cut into a road and we patch it, it compromises the road. We had people coming in saying, my daughter fell down and broke her arm. An elderly woman fell down and had to go to the hospital. And so, you know, what we're trying to kind of do is to get ahead of all that so that the roads are safe for, you know, for all our kids, for all of us. So, you know, that's why we take this seriously. And I think I understood, you know, in looking into this, that because it was a vacant lot, there was a piece of correspondence that typically gets sent to everybody that you unfortunately didn't get. In my mind, that is an important circumstance in this. But anyway, I would really hope that the folks who participate in construction projects in this town work with us, because, you know, I think none of us want to be here at the table talking about this.
No, I agree with you 100%. I can tell you, cold clock construction, it'll never happen
Yeah.
again.
And I thank you for listening to me.
And I think Mary makes some valid points, that just things I obviously considered as well. And one of the issues, I did speak to Mr. Graham, you know, and about the circumstances that there wasn't a house there at the time, the notice issue, which I think is important, may not have made it to them by the official, you know, leaving at the last known. And that was important to me. I know you have a family, and when we welcome you to the community, and these things are done in kind of cases of extreme hardship, and I consider this a case of extreme hardship. You know, without any water, it's going to be difficult to survive there. There are some other scenarios where we've maybe used different avenues to have people hold over for a period of time, but I would support the waiver.
I don't think we need to belabor the point. Why don't we just get to the vote?
Sure.
I'll entertain a motion to grant a waiver to the Town of Hingham rules and regulations governing street excavations adopted by the Board of Selectmen in 1986 as it relates to this particular lot, 2 Seal Cove Road.
So moved.
I was just going to add to 2 Seal Cove.
Right.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
And I would,
Welcome to Hingham.
Thank you.
Thank you.
and I believe Mr. Sylvester has talked about the repairs that he has recommended to the road, and I just, for the benefit of the viewing public, I understand that you have agreed to the repair of the road after the necessary work is done that he's outlined?
That's correct.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Sorry.
Roseanne's nice down there. Was that your little brother, or are you the little brother?
I'm the little brother, he's the big boss.
Okay, sorry we had to meet under these circumstances. If you need us for anything, you know, don't hesitate to call.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks
Ms.
for your
Graham.
time.
Have a good
The
night.
building
Thank you.
department post a bigger sign. Okay, on a happier note, I'd like to invite Representative Bradley to the table.
Thank you very much. You should tell them there's no water anyways. You can tell them.
That comes later.
You can tell them, Garrett.
How is everybody?
You
Nice to see you all as well.
You look well.
Things are going well. Busy, a lot of travel, but things are good. It's a great opportunity for me, and for those lawyers here, you probably saw in Lawyers Weekly the spread on officially named managing partner last week. The firm voted me in at the end of August. Yeah, it was great. It's great. A lot of work, a lot of responsibility.
Good luck with that.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Well, we didn't want you to leave town without giving you one of those
I'm not leaving
famous
town.
that you're extraordinarily attentive. We invited some of your colleagues to join us. I see Senator Connor in the audience. Welcome. Thank you for coming.
Thanks for coming.
You know, I've worked with you for a long time. I've always found you extraordinarily responsive, informed, just a great representative of the
Appreciate
people,
that.
and I can't tell you how grateful I am that you were my representative on the State House, and we all wish you just the best
I appreciate that.
as you go forward, and we put together a proclamation. I'd like to read it into the record and present it to you, and
I
my
appreciate
colleagues,
it.
I'm sure, will add to it when I'm through. This is a proclamation issued in appreciation to Representative Garrett J. Bradley. Whereas Representative Garrett J. Bradley has honorably represented the town of Hingham and its residents in the Massachusetts House of Representatives since 2001, and whereas Representative Bradley has always been mindful of the interests of the town of Hingham, and whereas Representative Bradley has advocated for and guided the town of Hingham on matters before the House of Representatives, and whereas Representative Bradley has steered numerous home rule petitions from the town of Hingham through the legislative process, and whereas Representative Bradley has advocated on behalf of the town of Hingham before many state agencies and administrations, and whereas Representative Bradley has provided outstanding support to countless community organizations and civic events, resulting in a healthy and vibrant community and improving the quality of life for residents of the town of Hingham. And now, therefore, recognizing that Representative Garrett Bradley's 16 years of service as state representative of the 3rd Plymouth District is worthy of acknowledgement, praise, and deep appreciation, the Board of Selectmen, on behalf of the residents of the town of Hingham, hereby conveys our sincere and heartfelt appreciation and gratitude for his outstanding work and dedicated service to the community. So I'd like to present this to you now.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, Mr. Chairman, I was thinking on the ride over here, I moved to this town when I was 10 years old, and I went to Plymouth River, and I was a new kid, and I had spent 3 years in Tennessee. My dad was with Holiday Inns. We were born in Woburn and moved down there for 3 years, so if you wanted to move up in the hotel chain, you had to go to Tennessee. And it's like 110 in the shade down there in January. So it was a pleasure to come back to Hingham, and I went to Plymouth River School. I'll never forget it. I had a teacher over there, and it was hard, 6th grade, moving back. And I had a teacher who said, let's see if we make it a little harder on you, see what you made of. Bill Maffey, who taught a lot of kids in this town. You know Bill Maffey, still there.
Yep.
Actually, still calls me once in a while. Came to my dad's wake when he passed away. So, I mean, this town really was the foundation upon which I was built. And it's just a great town, and it's a great district to represent. It was just a true honor of my life, really. And unfortunately, other things start to take hold when you have 3 young kids, and this opportunity was great. I thought I'd be able to get one more term in, but when it presents itself, we have people leave the legislature, unfortunately, all the time, and I really, it was very bittersweet for me because of what this job, how much I love doing it, but I would never do it less than 100%, and so now it's, like I said, like I told Heather, I said, you know, if you start to think you're indispensable, it's really time to go. so we have some good people out there, and it'll be an interesting fall.
I'll say this, that all the things that were in that proclamation, but, you know, a couple of things jumped out at me. We're going to miss your wisdom. We're going to miss your leadership. But I know we'll always have your friendship, and that's, all those things are important. So thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Appreciate that.
And I would add, one of the things that is very time-consuming in the role you had was that you were not only doing all these things in the proclamation, but there's an aspect of constituent services. And that's, you know, going to a Boy Scout event, or stopping in at Christmas in the Square, or going down to Hull for something. And I don't know how you did all that. You were very visible in the community, and I noticed walking behind you in the 4th of July parade, all the personal connections people felt to you. So I think it's not just what you accomplished in the role, but how you did the role, and you've set a good example, and we are just so deeply appreciative of that, and wish you great luck in this next chapter.
Thank you, Mary. I really didn't have a choice, because I followed Mary Jeanette Murray, and she really set the bar so high on that, and she really, her and I spent some time together before she left and I took over, and she said, whatever you do, you got to get back to everybody right away. You'd be surprised how many people don't, and it's what people remember. And I never forgot that, and I never forgot how gracious she was when she was leaving. Probably because she beat me the first time. She probably didn't care, but she was very gracious in helping me get my feet under me, and really was thinking about the district that way.
Is there anybody in the audience who'd like to? Yes, Senator.
All right, I'll be right there.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak here today. You know, good to see you too. I got up to the State House 9 years ago, and 9 years ago was basically halfway through your tenure up at the State House, and I've seen the remarkable effort and work that Garrett has put into this job, and picking his staff and making sure that they're responsive and attentive to constituent services, which is top-notch and what I try and emulate in my office. And a lot that kind of gets lost at this level is how important he really was to that building and in some of the major pieces of legislation that have passed over the past 10 years, whether it be the gun law that Garrett was incredibly important on the conference committee, basically back and forth and convincing Representative Peterson, to give in on some of the things that made that gun law, in my opinion, really the staple for what every other state should be looking at, the example, the model. Whether it be the election law reforms that Garrett took hold of as chairman, the opioid crisis I know is incredibly personal to you and important. I mean, the things that he was able to accomplish up here were kind of overshadowed because of how good he was at delivering for the towns in the district. And one of the other things, the last piece of legislation that you filed was the town administrator bill here. I'm happy to say that earlier this week, the last piece of legislation that you filed was signed by the governor. So on behalf of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, I have 2 things to give to you. I'm sure you probably give about 10,000 of these out during your career, so you might as well get one.
Now you got some of your own.
But we have an official citation from the Massachusetts State Senate, and be it known that the Massachusetts Senate extends its congratulations to you, Representative Garrett Bradley, in recognition of your 16 years of dedicated service to the Commonwealth of Massachusetts as a representative of the General Court for the 3rd Plymouth District, and be it known that we wish you nothing but the best of luck in your future. And we also saw the governor in Cohasset, and he wanted to give his thanks as well to your service. That's great. And the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, on behalf of the citizens of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, I'm pleased to confer upon you this governor's citation in recognition of your 16 years of dedicated service to the Commonwealth of Massachusetts as the representative in the General Court for the 3rd Plymouth District, signed Governor Charlie Baker and Lieutenant Governor Karen Polito.
That's great.
Representative
Thank you very much.
Baker.
Appreciate it, Senator.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much. Thank you very much. Last time I saw the governor, I let him know how well he did in Hingham. He says, "Oh, I know." Thanks, everybody.
Good night, Garrett. Best of luck.
Best of luck to you.
Thank you very much.
Take care. Oh, it's nice going out on a positive note. That's good. That's the way to do it. Okay. All right. You are very far ahead of schedule. Yeah, you're going way too fast.
Doesn't happen too often.
So maybe you could take up some of your other votes. Sure. I know that we're waiting on Tim White being here at 7:45 for an affordable housing update, and I don't think you want me to start the 8:15 spot. No, we'll hold on that. All right, well, why don't we start taking up some of these votes? We've got the employment contract with the town accountant. So the town accountants notified me within the 6-month period that she was interested in continuing her employment for the town. I would wholeheartedly recommend that. I negotiated a contract with her that I think is a very reasonable term. Modest increase puts her into the range that the Personnel Board likes to see, right around the midpoint of her peers. Colleagues have any questions?
I would just say that I think the town of Hingham is very fortunate to have Sue Nickerson as part of our team. She is dedicated, capable, hardworking, plays an invaluable role in her work with the advisory committee, with town meeting, and we're very lucky to have her.
I think she makes everybody's job a little easier because she does so well herself. And there's nothing unusual about it. Is it a 3-year extension?
It's a 3-year extension. Same terms. The only change was the compensation rate went up.
And that'll be effective in the spring, is that?
Correct. At the end of the beginning of the contract term.
Sure. Thank you.
Okay. Well, I would echo Mary and Paul's sentiments here. Sue's an excellent town accountant and a delightful woman to work with. I'll entertain a motion to sign an employment contract with the town accountant.
So moved.
Second.
All's in favor?
Aye.
Your next item is the Consolidated Grant Agreement with HCAM. Pursuant to your request, you asked us to put it on the webpage. We did. We received no comments. All right, well, sometimes we will, sometimes we won't. You know, not everything is. That must mean everything was in place. Okay. We have a motion from my colleagues.
Make a motion to sign the Consolidated Grant Agreement with Hingham Community Access and Media, Inc.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Mission accomplished,
Thanks again,
fellas.
guys.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Keep up the good work.
All right, let's get to the hard stuff, the liquor licenses.
Well, you have a local initiative unit first, and that is, I don't want to quite say a housekeeping, but I guess for lack of a better understanding, that's what it is. It's a property we purchased through the Affordable Housing Trust, and we want to get that onto the subsidized housing index or inventory by DHCD to increase our count. It's eligible for it, and we just need to file the paperwork. You need to take this vote that would authorize the chairman to sign the LIP.
So this is a process or procedural vote?
Correct. The house is there, everything is in place. It's already an affordable unit, so.
My only question is, we're waiving the local preference. Is that to facilitate this being incorporated into the SHI without
Correct.
a lot of fuss?
Correct. And there's already a person in the property already.
All right.
A qualified individual in the house, so this is really completely after the fact. We're just, we want to make sure that this counts on our inventory.
Okay. Would anybody like to make that motion? Well, we got time.
All right. I'll make a motion to authorize the chairman to submit a local initiative program, local action unit, LAU, application to the Department of Housing and Community Development, DHCD, on behalf of the town of Hingham and South Shore Habitat for Humanity, Incorporated, for an affordable single-family home located on Winona Way, and to execute the regulatory agreement and other necessary documents required to qualify the property for the inclusion on the subsidized housing inventory, SHI, following review by DHCD.
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. South Shore Conservatory, all alcoholic beverages license. Who wants to do it?
Tom, these are all in order? Everything looked like, okay. Make a motion to approve the issuance of a special one-day all-alcoholic beverages license to the South Shore Conservatory of Music, care of William Arvanites, for the Hingham Jazz Festival at the South Shore Conservatory of Music on Saturday, September 25th, 2016, from 11 a.m. to 9 p.m.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Doing the other one now?
If you would.
Sure.
Thanks.
Make a motion to approve the issuance of a special one-day wine and malt beverage liquor license to Susan Rizzo for the Hingham Youth Football and Cheerleaders Parent Social to be held at Hingham Community Center on Friday, October 14, 2016. Right, Tom?
Yes.
From 7 p.m. to 11 p.m.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
I'd just like to amend the liquor license, though. I think it's Saturday, the 24th. 25th, I think, is a Sunday.
24th is a Saturday. I'm pretty sure.
We've got it down as the 25th, so
The 25th is a Saturday, September.
Well,
do they want it on a Sunday
the
or Saturday?
request is asking for September 25th.
Which is a Saturday.
It's a
Oh, no, it's a Sunday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
24th is a Saturday.
I believe we just need to revote that and strike the word Saturday.
Yeah,
I hope it's being held on Sunday, then.
I just,
Well,
It has to be the right date, so it's only a one-day license.
They've given us, the paperwork that they've supplied to us references the 25th
Right.
in two places.
So we're gonna,
So just strike Saturday, I think,
Okay?
for your motion.
I'll
sure,
to entertain a motion to amend the liquor license with respect to the South Shore Conservatory to strike Saturday from the license.
So moved.
second.
All's in favor?
Aye.
I just hope it's supposed to be Sunday, because
Me too.
I have a memory of last year, and I don't think it was on a Sunday. We hear
Well,
any-
Doing a continued vote.
Give me 1 second.
If we look on their webpage, might be,
maybe somebody's watching and can call.
I'm trying to reach as we're waiting.
You never know.
That football practice probably isn't over yet, so they're all down the field.
Well, this is conservatory, right? These
Oh.
guys, they're watching football.
Oh, I'm thinking of, yeah. You're right. You're right. I was thinking it was the football one that was, I'm wrong. I still think it's a Saturday. This-
11 a.m. to 9 p.m. sounds more like a, yeah, well, good catch. We'll make sure we get it on the right date.
The Jazz Festival's on Sunday, so I'm assuming they want the liquor license for Sunday.
All right, so,
Okay, then, perfect.
Great,
so we've amended
Yep.
it. Great.
thanks for the catch, though.
Okay, well,
I think you need to take a recess.
we'll take a little recess, folks, but we will be back. I
7:45.
urge you to stay tuned, because we're going to have a very informative discussion on some issues of importance that affect the town generally, and certain neighborhoods in particular. So with that, we'll be in recess for the next... We're still going to be in recess, because I don't know if we can...
Yeah, I think we got to wait till 7:45.
Yeah. We're in recess until 7:45. You're right on time. You're early.
Thank you, everyone.
Hey, greetings, salutations. We're back. We'd invite Mr. White to join us at the table. Welcome. Tim, we thought, just for purposes of how do I say? We thought it might be helpful to the residents if you kind of set out briefly what the role is that your committee has within the town, and how it interacts with Beal Street property, but in a broader sense, if you could, as part of the presentation that you're about to give us.
Sure.
As well as the town.
Sure.
I think
Yeah.
that'd be helpful.
My name's Tim White. I'm the chairman of the Hingham Affordable Housing Trust, and the trust was created by town meeting back in 2007. And it was created for the purpose of creating and maintaining affordable housing in our community, and I think that probably it's unanimous in our town that we do need affordable housing of all types, including home ownership, rentals, and assisted living. So with that mantra we received back in 2007 from town meeting, and by the way, Affordable Housing Trust only came into existence in the Commonwealth in 2006. So we were very much so ahead of the curve, and I think our community should be commended and be very proud of its early efforts to work with affordable housing. So as I said, our role is to create additional affordable housing and to maintain affordable housing. And with that, over the years, we have looked at a number of different ways of doing that. Some are large developments and some are smaller developments. And then we also have looked at the idea of purchasing individual properties throughout the community so that we are locating affordable units in all parts of town. We utilize funds we received from the town through town meeting and through the CPC primarily to accomplish our goals. We have a number of projects ongoing right now to put affordable housing here in town, and one of them is the Selectmen's parcel, but I'm going to hold off on a minute to talk about that. We are actively working on attempting to expand Lincoln School Apartments, which we are the managing owner of the Lincoln School Apartments here in town, and I see here in the audience Al Chambers, who is not only a resident of Lincoln School, but he is our newest addition to the Affordable Housing Trust, and we have welcomed him aboard. So with that in mind, we are attempting to work with Old Ship to see whether or not we might be able to obtain some of their property in the rear of their property in order to expand Lincoln School. The waiting list, I'm not sure, but I think it's years for folks that want to get into Lincoln School apartments. We also have, this board transferred for the town to us a property up on Whiting Street that was part of a prior 40B and was supposed to be dedicated for a purpose, I think a safety building or something like that, public safety. And it was determined that the best use for that property, it's 302 Whiting Street, is for affordable housing. We have, again, worked with CPC to obtain some funding. We were initially planning on renovating the house there and subdividing into a second lot, so we would create 2 affordable housing units up there. But after further review with the town representatives, we have determined that it makes probably more sense to raise that building and create 3 affordable housing units there. So that is what we are proceeding for, and I think that this is a good opportunity for me to invite everybody in the town to sort of have their radar up and watching for affordable housing units, because Hingham is an expensive town to live in. Real estate is expensive. And because it's expensive, it makes it hard for our trust to create single affordable housing units without spending more money than it really makes financial sense. And over the past couple of years, we have had the ability to create a couple of them. One of them, a single bedroom unit down in Beal Cove. We purchased and then sold to a qualified person that, but we sold at a loss. So we pay to create the affordable housing, and we're willing to sell properties at a loss, recognizing it costs money to create affordable housing units in our town. The question is how much, and we're having real trouble finding properties in town that will allow us to purchase properties that are 2 or even 3 bedroom. We do have a 2-bedroom in foreclosure we're going to probably take a look at next week, but what we have found is that the 3-bedroom units, properties in town, cost too much for us to justify buying and knowing that we're going to sell it at a significant discount, because we are restricted in how much money we can sell these units for by DHCD. So finding 3 bedrooms is not an easy thing to do. We're certainly not giving up on that by any stretch of the imagination, but we are recognizing the realities of the marketplace. And we're trying to figure out different ways where we can create those 3 bedrooms. And for us, Whiting Street was a perfect opportunity to create 3. So that's what we're planning on doing with that. But if anyone in the audience, the television audience, are here, or I've always said this to to other board members in the town, that if a property comes on your radar screen that you think might be appropriate for the Affordable Housing Trust, please let us know. We have a website where you can reach us on that, or you can certainly reach me. You can call me at my home. It's in the book. It's 781-740-2899. But we would love to get more opportunities to create affordable housing throughout the community as opposed to strictly in one location. So then I think that probably covers what opportunities we're working on right now, and it brings us to the Selectmen's parcel.
Before you begin on that, Tim, on Whiting Street, the plan is to raise the existing structure and build 3 new units?
Correct.
Would that be on existing frontage of Whiting Street, or would
Yes.
you be talking about a subdivision?
No, what we do is we have a shared driveway. That's the plan. That's what we've been working with Roger Fernandez to come up with a plan that works, and with the engineering department, so,
Okay.
yeah.
On-site
And I should also add that it's an exciting proposal, too, because we're looking at partnering with the Habitat for Humanity, which I think is a great, it's great for the town, it's great for the folks that actually move in there because they put their own blood, sweat, and tears into the property. So we're still in the preliminary stage, but based upon our review from our engineer and from Roger's perspective, that there is plenty of land available to do what we want to do without creating issues. So.
Tim, may I just ask, I think you were in here earlier in the year about a property on Nokomis. What happened with that?
That's a great question. And it's an example of what we've been running into out there. We've probably looked at, in the past year, 6 or 8 properties. Nokomis Street was one of them, and it was a property that the price was right, but we went down to look at it, and it was quite clear that there was going to be a significant amount of work that would be necessary to be performed prior to us turning it over to a qualified purchaser who would not have the financial wherewithal to make the necessary repairs. And we're talking about 6 figures in repairs. You, for example, you walked into the kitchen and it was like multi-leveled. And it just, it was built on ledge, so it was really going to be a real, we were very disappointed. We actually put an offer down and had it subject to a home inspection, and after we had our expert go down and look at it, it just didn't make financial sense. And that's what we're finding out there, is so many of them don't make financial sense.
And most of your sort of seed money, that comes through CPC, it's the Opportunity Fund?
Right. What we do is we have done the last couple of years is we request funds annually from CPC, and typically what we do is we have one set of funds that we're looking for would be for the opportunity funding, which is just that. If there's an opportunity out there, we want to have money in the bank so we're ready to move forward on a purchase. So we do have that money in the bank, and we're in a position to do that if a property comes up. But we also take advantage of CPC for properties like Whiting Street for the development costs, or we did some for the Selectmen's parcel where we were on our earlier mission to make the home ownership.
Yeah, I would just, before we get on to the next subject, I know that CPC statutorily, 10% of annual proceeds need to be devoted towards affordable housing. As I think back over the years and the investments we've made in CPC, we've used it quite a bit for open space. In the last few years, we've used it extensively for historic preservation. We've used it for recreation. I would hope that you and the Affordable Housing Trust would be aggressively seeking those CPC funds. I realize that from year to year, 1 year it's going to be, as this past year with the Laner property, it's open space. But given the economic pressures that you've described, I would encourage you to request CPC funds. And I think in the past couple of years it's been $100,000, $100,000. I'd consider asking for more.
Well, I don't need to be encouraged along those lines. We did a couple of years ago have 175 on one and 50 on another, so it does vary from year to year. You're right, but
it is one of the few. It is one of your only sources of funding, and again, similar to some of our historic preservation and others. So, it would be nice to see more affordable housing requests coming through our CPC in the next few years.
Anything you want to add? Chair's yours.
Okay, so that brings us to the Selectmen's parcel, which originally back in May of 2005. when there was no Affordable Housing Trust, there was a Hingham Housing Partnership. The town voted to have 20 to 40 affordable units, home ownership units created on the property, including a mix of low and moderate income housing targeting 50%, 80%, 100%, and 120% of the area's median income, and it required that all properties be owner-occupied. So earlier on, because of the recession and because of the lack of funding programs, there was little activity on this property. We took it on a couple years ago to put it out to bid for the 20 to 40 units. And we had actually gone through the RFP process. We had retained a consultant to develop the property, and we're in the process of developing the property when a second opportunity came to our attention, and that was that there's appeared to be significant interest in the property from a number of developers to develop affordable assisted living facility. So we stepped back from the home ownership because, as I prefaced in my earlier remarks, the community, Hingham, needs affordable housing of all ilk: home ownership, assisted living, and rental. We don't have enough of any of those. But the assisted living facilities are pretty much a pretty unique animal, and it seemed like a great opportunity to put one in there, especially because Beal Street has taken, has made a significant change in the neighborhood over the last 10 years. The number of developments down there, including one of our own, 80 Beal Street, has changed that neighborhood dramatically and increased the traffic and the congestion. And for that reason and a number of reasons, we looked at the affordable housing component, which would generate less traffic, as a good fit for there. So we stepped back and we again went back to town meeting and asked town meeting with the permission authority to look into that option, and town meeting this past year did vote to allow us to do that. So we did an RFP for assisted living facilities, and we received 4 of them, four responses, and we're actually pretty excited about the responses when we got them. The trust was very excited about them. But when we sort of delved into the details, and as they say, sometimes the details are the devil in the details, we found that, once again, there was a financial component that made it not as fiscally sound a proposal for our community as we thought it would be, which was very disappointing. And so it kind of, again, set us back, and the article, the town meeting article, does allow us to go back to the home ownership component, which we certainly are more than willing to do. And since this is a brand new change, that we will be discussing this at our trust meeting next Wednesday night. Here, by the way, folks, and anybody is welcome to join us. The change has also, I'm sure we'll have the trust revisit the entire project, because one of the things we experienced as we worked our way through the home ownership process was that the developers that bid on that all told us that rentals would be a better development, more fiscally able to be accomplished. So I think we will be looking at rentals as well at our next meeting, and then we will report back to the Board of Selectmen as to what the sense of the trust is, and that's sort of where we are right now. I think I should add one other thing, and that is that downstairs there is a project being presented, a 40B, a 300-unit project for Beal Street. And as I said, the trust has recognized that Beal Street has changed dramatically, and although our primary role is to create affordable housing, we also are sensitive to the neighbors, we're sensitive to the needs of the town, we're sensitive to what makes most sense for the town of Hingham. And a 300-unit apartment complex on Beal Street will devastate that neighborhood. And if there's something that we can do with our project that might take us out of that situation in compliance with 40B, then it's something that our trust is going to entertain. We welcome input. We don't know what we're going to do at this stage. Right now, we're just kind of recovering from the disappointment of the assisted living proposals, but that's where we are.
Tim, could you perhaps just explain for the viewing audience, you've mentioned a couple times that sometimes the economics don't make sense. Mm-hmm. And just perhaps like for the assisted living, conceptually how the affordable component affects the economics. And I think people are hearing in general the economics of the assisted living aren't working, the economics on Nokomis aren't working. Can you just explain a little bit about what that means?
Let me give you two examples. I think that's a good question. I'll go back. Let me start out going back to Nokomis. Nokomis made sense until it cost so much to fix it up. But what we're finding in Hingham is that to purchase a 3-bedroom, you're going to be paying $500,000 at a minimum. And when we resell it based on the guidelines that DHCD gives us, the most we can sell it for is $200,000. So that means that we're going to pay $300,000 to create one single affordable housing unit in the town. From our perspective, that's too much. Now, I'm not sure what that's the selectmen's. If the selectmen are thinking that, recognize the fact that Hingham's more expensive, but that's the position that we have taken as a trust. That's on the single family. The question on the assisted living is a little bit above my pay scale. I understood going into the assisted living development proposal that it is a unique animal. It's not a development of apartments. It's not a development of a single-family homes subdivision. It's a unique animal, and because of the cost to create an assisted living facility, and I assume maintain it, that the developers are unwilling to pay fair market value or anything close to that for the real estate. And that is exactly what we found once we got sort of the details out of the proposals that came in. And I don't know whether I can be any clearer than that.
So in a sense, if you look at a developer, a developer is incurring a certain number of costs to develop, whether it's homes or an apartment building, and then because if, for example, only 75% of them are at market rate, the developer, in a sense, is going to be losing money on some of those affordable units and has to, in some way, find a way. So the economics have to make sense where the developer can still realize a certain profit to meet their own requirements.
And that's true, but that's also true in home ownership.
Yes.
And I'll give the example of 80
Sure.
Beal, is we had 8 units that we created down on 80 Beal Street, 2 of which are affordable. We wanted to get 3, but the developer said he couldn't make it work. He couldn't get enough out of the market rate to justify a 3rd affordable. But I think it's even deeper than that when it comes to the assisted living facility, that it's not just the difference between we need to support the affordable. I think it has to do with the...
If I can interject, and I can give you some clarification, I think, on this. The assisted living, the affordable assisted living development mirrors the affordable rental development for the rental component. You know, there are people living in there and they're paying a rental fee. But the assisted living facility has a medical component on top of that. And that medical component is expensive. And the need to drive that down to the affordable indexes in order to get it to qualify according to DHCD are so extensive that they, and this is what happened in the bids that we saw, that they have to drive that purchase price down because they can't afford the debt service on a mortgage and then the operating costs of the issue. So that's why you know, you're seeing such pressure on the affordable housing, the assisted living.
Yeah, which it's disappointing. I mean, it was really, we thought we had a good proposal and it just didn't work out. That's the way it is. And I will tell you, we're seeing that in affordable housing in the market. It is a tough market in the town of Hingham. We are a very nice community to live in. We're a wealthy community comparative to other places. So.
Thank you.
So, just one last plug, and if anybody does have anything on their radar screen in respect to properties that they think might be of interest to the Hingham Affordable Housing Trust, please let me know. 781-740-2899.
Maybe you could tell the public who your other colleagues on your committee are, so that if they happen to come across.
I can, as a matter of fact. We have, as I said, Al Chambers is here, and I saw Nancy Kerber come in. Aileen Calnan, Anita Comerford, Mike McDonald. Help me out, guys. Who else?
Kevin Conley?
No, Kevin's done. We have a brand-new member who I haven't met yet, but we're looking
Britton?
forward to meeting her. Britton Dubois. And that's it.
Okay.
And Paul Gannon is our selectman's representative. And I'll bet you have his phone number.
It's in the book. All right.
Any other questions?
Thank you very much. We appreciate the overview and the work that you're doing.
Well, we appreciate the support that this board gives us, and frankly, the community gives us.
Well, and I appreciate your flexibility as we're looking at different opportunities on that parcel. I know in particular for your trust, there's been a little pivoting to explore different things, and we appreciate the fact that we can do that in a cooperative way, and your flexibility and willingness to consider different possibilities.
You bet.
Thanks again, Tim. Hope you stick around for the next conversation. All right. It's 8:15, and as posted on our agenda, we're having a discussion with respect to a couple of topics, actually. The comprehensive permit, or as we refer to it as the 40B discussion, and the request for proposal on number 2 Beal Street, also known as the Selectmen's parcel. And as part of that effort, the board felt it was important to speak to the town as a whole, educate it generally, and as the conversation evolves, we'd speak to the particulars of the 2 Beal Street RFP. And as Tim said it a moment ago, at our town meeting this year, we voted to authorize this board to put out a request for proposal for that particular site, and we'll get into that conversation shortly. But for now, I thought it would be helpful if our town administrator take us through an overview. You can see the PowerPoint poised, ready to go. And then the conversation will flow from there. So with that, Mr. Alexiadis,
We have some
floor is yours.
here, if anyone would like a copy of what we have on the webpage, on the screen.
People know that.
And we also have that on our webpage, because I don't think we made enough copies for everybody in the room.
Yeah, good, yeah. Yeah, good. Well, they did come.
I don't think they use a bigger room, but, you know, we do what we can.
It's nice to see some people come.
You want the lights on or off?
It's really how Bob. Bob, can you, do you want the lights on or off for the viewing public at home? So it doesn't matter? Okay. If everybody can see it fine, then I'll leave the lights the way they are.
Okay, you tall guys, stand in front of the screen. You gotta.
We're going to be talking to that screen, so.
Sorry about that.
You don't have to leave, but you can't stay there.
You know,
I don't want Ted Matthews behind
I think we can open that door and get some more chairs.
The heavy hitters here. Thank you very much, Joe.
all right. Sorry for the lack of chairs. Before I start, I'd just want to recognize this was a large group effort. Right off the bat, Tom Mayo and Emily Wentworth spent countless hours the last week helping us boil down, along with our real estate counsel, Susan Murphy, a rather complex subject into a more comprehensive, a more, I think, easier to understand discussion. I'm sure there will be some points that we gloss over a little bit, and people might have more expertise in the audience, so we can delve much deeper into this, but we wanted to make sure we could explain what we're trying to say to everybody. Tom, you want to start us up? All right, well, we're gonna give you a few definitions, because we want to make sure we all are on the same page and understanding with definitions, because I hear a lot of confusion when people ask me these questions. We're talking about Chapter 40B and the town-wide comprehensive permit. Sections 20 to 23 of the Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 40B, the comprehensive permit law, it's commonly referred to as what we know as Chapter 40B. Chapter 40B was enacted in 1969 to help address statewide shortage of affordable housing by mandating that 10% of every community's housing stock be affordable. Chapter 40B states that a municipality is required to waive many local zoning requirements, some would say most, for an affordable housing proposal if at least 25% of the units have long-term affordability restrictions until such time as 10% of the housing stock within the community is affordable. And we're going to get into how that is calculated shortly. There are many variations of 40B development types, including rental, homeownership, multifamily, single-family, age-restricted, assisted living, and group homes, etc. We have many of those in town. Who administers Chapter 40B? You've heard an acronym, DHCD. I'm not very good at an acronym, so I really, for me personally, I try to spell it out. Department of Housing and Community Development is a department within the state government of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And so when you hear us say that term, we're referring to them. DHCD has adopted regulations and guidelines that govern all of Chapter 40B applications. And in some cases, DHCD facilitates funding opportunities for those options for those applicants. How do housing units count towards the 10% affordable housing goal? DHCD maintains a subsidized housing inventory. We refer to that as SHI. And the reason I wanted to do this is frequently when I talk to people and I say DHCD and SHI in the same sentence, the conversation ends as they don't understand what I'm saying. And I get that. Man, we love acronyms in this business. Subsidized housing inventory, which is the official list qualifying affordable housing projects, number of units as recognized by DHCD. This number is used by DHCD as the numerator in the equation to determine the municipality's percentage for affordable housing units per total housing units. If the SHI reflects a percentage of total housing units greater than 10%, the town is not mandated by law to permit housing projects that do not meet zoning requirements. To qualify on a town's SHI, units must be restricted to affordable status per the state-defined guidelines, and those are set by DHCD. Home ownership project. 25% of the units that are affordable are to be counted on that type of projects. So as Tim White mentioned earlier, the 80 Beal Street project was an 8-unit development, of which 2 were affordable, 25%. Therefore, they count on our index. Any less, they wouldn't have. Any more, they can still, of course. Rental projects, however, receive 100% of the units on your index, on your inventory, as long as at least 25% of the units are deemed affordable, and we're going to spend a moment in a second talking about what affordable means. Linden Ponds, DHCD only counts 25% of the units at Linden Ponds. This is the essence of the dispute between the town and DHCD. The town disputes this count and asserts that 100% of the units should count as they are rental units, and there's where we part opinions.
Why don't you hold your questions until the end of the presentation, and then we can chat away. Thank you.
I've got 13 slides, so we can go back to anyone, I promise. How do you qualify for an affordable housing unit? Per state-defined guidelines, an applicant's household income must not exceed 80% of the area median income. And so here we have our third acronym, AMI. In Hingham's case, AMI, area median income, is based upon the Boston, Cambridge, Quincy metro area as defined by the Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD. The AMI is a regionally based calculation and varies from region to region throughout the state. In our area, and you can see the limits down here, in order to qualify for a unit, a one-person unit, 51,000, and you can see the numbers move across to a 5-person household at 78,900. So here's our current status. This slide really, was weeks in the making for us, and it tries to encapsulate where we are as a community. As of September 15th, 2016, the town's current subsidized housing index, per the town's position, is 16.9%. We have two cases right now that we are litigating relative to that. One is a housing development on Ward Street, and one is a housing development on Main Street. Both are 40B applications, and we have contested our position. The DHCD position is that our subsidized housing index, with the Linden Ponds count as they see it, is 752 units, or 8.51%. The fourth column you see here in yellow on I don't know if you all have, I think you have colored copies. The number of units to reach the Department of Housing and Community Development, DHCD's interpretation of 10% through the year 2020 is 132 more units. If we put 132 more units into production before January 1st, 2020, I'm sorry, before as of right now, we will be over the 10% per DHCD. This denominator and numerator changes every 10 years with the annual census. So on January 1 of 2020, we will have a new census. And we will have obviously added housing units over the past 10 years, both affordable and affordable and market rate, so that we'll see the affordable units of the numerator raise, but we also will see the market rate units of the denominator increase. So what we've tried to do here is talk about where we are now and where we're going. In methodology 1, we extrapolated our 6 years of building history that we have in front of us, how many units we put on in the last 6 years, in both categories, and then we just moved those out linearly in pretty much the most conservative fashion we could to show that as of January 1, 2020, you will have to add 200 housing units to the town's affordable inventory, the SHI inventory, in order to reach the 10% threshold through the next decade, through 2030. We also did another methodology where we took into account some of the projects that we have on board. We made some interpretation judgments based upon some of the development stock that occurred a little more heavily weighted to the front of the decade. A lot of the housing projects like the Shipyard, Back River, Black Rock are done. And so we don't expect that in the next 3 years we'll see more development from there. So, but when we went through that exercise, we saw that it didn't change that much. We were looking at a spread between 200 and 180 units over that next 3-year period to get to the numbers that you need for the next decade.
But Ted, that includes the 132.
Correct. It includes the 130. It's not iterative. So if you do the 132 now and you're over your threshold, and we're going to talk in a couple of slides about some timing issues, then you're going to need to add an additional 68 or, get to the math real quickly, 47. Thank you. Down below on the slide, you can see some of our math from our methodology, and we looked at our housing units, etc. So right now, we're in what we call a safe harbor. When the town reaches 10% or makes certain progress towards 10%, Chapter 40B and the regulations allow a zoning board to impose conditions or deny 40B projects. This is known as a safe harbor. It is the town's position that with the Linden Ponds project, the town has exceeded 10%. However, DHC does not recognize the town's position, and therefore the town's SHI count is contested, and this dispute is currently pending before DHCD's Housing Appeals Committee. In the event the town is not successful in its assertion that it currently exceeds 10%, the town also has the benefit of another safe harbor. The 1-year safe harbor that we're presently in is due to the 190 units of affordable housing recently permitted at 319 Lincoln Street, the Building 19 site, which represents a minimum of 2% of the town's total housing stock. The zoning board may now deny a permit or impose conditions as consistent with local needs for 1 year from the date the permit was issued. This safe harbor ends on May 17th, 2017. You need to put 132 units of production into production prior to May 17th, or that safe harbor will expire and the town will be subject to additional 40B proposals. This chart will be a little harder for us to look at collectively. I don't have my pointer here. I'll try to do it from my height. Follow something. This map is trying to show us what the proposed developments are that we know about here in town. I gotta read this as I point. I can't read the top one, it's too far from my eyes. Habitat for Humanity is the furthest most project, and it's 1 unit on a half an acre, and it is pending as we speak right now.
Ted, could you just maybe kind of point it out a little bit the best you can? And
Need a stick.
It's the highest one you see on the map.
thank you.
Okay. The one next to it is, I know it as Alliance, you folks may know it as Broadstone Bear Cove. It's on a 12.06 acre parcel, formerly, or currently, the Hingham Mutual site. It has 300 units, and they're proposing a 300 unit 40B rental development on that property. We move down a little bit, and we see in blue Chestnut Gardens. That is a permitted project, 4.5 acres, 23 units, and 2 on the subsidized housing inventory. We move down here, and this is the Selectmen's parcel, and it is a 12.7 acre parcel and the units are unknown at this time, but I think we were looking at somewhere around 100 units on that property as a potential. We come down here and we see Riverstone. Now, this is an active 40B application. We have it. It was received prior to the moratorium beginning, so we will continue to permit, and right now that is in litigation. As Viking Lane. 10% count. The village at Main Street is known as SEB. It's a 12.72 acre site, 16 units, 4 affordable. And it is in litigation. It has recently been re-permitted as a 4-unit subdivision, standard subdivision. But litigation hasn't ended yet. It won't again until the property transfers, but not sure. Then we have Linden Ponds. And Linden Ponds is big. I don't have the numbers here.
104?
We all know. I'm sorry?
104?
Additional units.
I think we're talking about,
26 SHIs.
we're talking about
Right.
26 additional, oh, so you're just referring, I'm sorry. We have 104 units applied for, of which 26 will count on our SHI index. We've included these, we have not reduced our 132 by these numbers. There's a building permit pending, and when that building permit is signed, we'll be able to reduce that 132 by 26 numbers, 26 units. As I understand it, the building permit is in the building department, and moving through the process, they expect it will be issued within the next few weeks. And we move into an area down here where the development is a little less specific. The first one is, that I'm pointing to here, is the Bristol property. It's about a 300-acre property that they're developing. We've been told that residential housing is one component of something they will be looking for up there. Right now, they're not zoned to do that, so they would have to file a 40B application to be able to do that, which they could do after May 17th of next year. And then, of course, we have the industrial park, and that's in a similar situation. It's not zoned for residential, but I've been told that they're considering residential options up there in the future. We also have an Abington Street proposal for 24 units. And we have a proposal over here that is about a 22.5 acre parcel right just south of Queen Anne's Corner. Some people might know it as the Rocky property. Behind Marcioni Farms. And so that's what we know about. We have a few others that we've heard about, but we don't know about them. They're private property, and those individuals haven't come forward. It would be inappropriate to talk about them. But these are the ones we've been told. And so sort of the proposed developments that you're seeing that are potentially out there. On the next page. So that brings us to 2 Beal Street. It's the purpose of some of our discussion tonight. We see 4 options that we propose to the board that you have, as we can see, as a suite right now. Tim stole a little bit of the thunder by letting you know that we're going to ask you to reject all the bids from the previous proposal. I can speak to you in detail about that briefly. I had asked you for a 2-week period to negotiate with the Grantham Group. Specifically, we wanted to understand how they were going to apply for housing tax credits, and they had mentioned in their RFP a one line that they were going to apply for CPC funds. And I think most of the reviewing group felt that that was going to be a nominal local contribution amount. However, it wasn't. And the 2 things we discovered were the housing tax credits were absolutely critical to their process. They were applying for $500,000 a year for 10 years. They had gotten them in the past from DHCD, but they didn't get them on the first try. They got them on the second try, which was a delay of a year. And that delay of a year would essentially eliminate one of the goals of this project, which is to get us 83 affordable housing units on an index that would meet our goal, moving us towards that number of 132. So that was not going to happen regardless. But then the other issue is the CPC funding they were looking for was not what we had expected, a few $100,000 at best. It was $2 to $3 million is what they were looking for. So essentially they were offering us $1.4 million, and they were asking for $2 to $3 million in cash. We were a little surprised that they didn't call that out a little more detailed in the bid. It would have helped us a little quicker in our evaluation, but everybody wants to put their foot forward in their own way. The town currently only, as Tim indicated, has the authority to proceed to reissue the RFP for an affordable assisted living facility, or to reissue an RFP for the development of 20 to 40 single-family homes. And we leave that with you as two options, the first two options. You can also have an option of no action. It's generally always an option. And then we're going to suggest to you a fourth option, which is to issue a new RFP for a Chapter 40B development of approximately 100 affordable rental units. Flip the page. And we're going to take you through each of these options in detail. Option one, to proceed with existing authorization from town meeting and reissue the RFP for an affordable assisted living facility. This option would require us to reissue the new RFP. We could do that fairly quickly. We try to give you some risk and benefits here. Risks, non-responsive bids. The previous attempt, we had 3 of 4 non-responsive bids. Time constraints. I think what we saw compellingly was, because of the assisted living feature, and therefore the financing requirements of these tax credits, it is unlikely that anyone would supply a bid to us that would be able to meet our goal, one of our goals, of achieving a development on that property within the safe harbor that we currently have. That is just absolutely unlikely. And then also a lower purchase price. It's clear to us that now we are not likely to see a purchase price that would provide any level of income to the town. Benefits. Well, as we indicated before, and Tim mentioned earlier, it provides a very needed element of affordable housing. The RFP is readily available for reissue, and we don't need any more town meeting approval. So there are the benefits if you wanted to pursue that option. Option 2 is returning back to the 20 to 40 single-family homes. I think we look at the risks here, and 25% of 20 to 40 units will, mean that we will not reach either the uncontested 10% goal. However, we continue to maintain our litigation position that the town has already exceeded our 10%. I will be saying that every time, as council has indicated to me that we are going to be saying that every time. So if you hear me repetitively on that, we're talking about not being over the index, and we're talking about being over the index, and the town has taken a legal position that we're over the index. Fewer total units to address our affordable housing needs. Clearly, 25% of 20 to 40 won't meet our goals. But it would provide an affordable aspect of affordable housing, and we wouldn't need any more town meeting approvals. Can quickly run through the no action. It's similar to the previous one. There will be no capitalized realized, there will be no additional affordable housing units, and we will certainly not reach the uncontested goal by the close of our current safe harbor. However, the town may continue to litigate its position that the town has already exceeded its 10%. No additional town meetings or to be approvals will be required for no action. So option 4 is the option that I am recommending to you. And that is to issue a new RFP for a Chapter 40 development of approximately 100 rental units. This option would entail creating and issuing a new RFP for the development of a friendly 40B development at 2 Beal Street. This would require additional town meeting approval at a special town meeting, which would have to occur in November to allow a reasonable time period for permitting to be completed before the 1-year safe harbor expires on May 17, 2017. The risks include potential for not completing the permitting phase before May 17th. However, the town may continue its litigation position that the town has already exceeded its 10%. Benefits. The first one, of course, would be the potential for meeting the goal of an uncontested 10% before the expiration of the 1-year safe harbor, providing 100 affordable housing units to meet our needs, town oversight of size and design, because we would have a significant ability as the owners of the property to dictate design, and potential for significant revenue. The marketplace, and we had an appraisal done on a property recently that we were considering acquiring that had a 40B potential, and when we looked at that, the marketplace is paying somewhere between $40,000 and $70,000 per unit for land to acquire to build a rental 40B project. And that concludes my presentation.
All right. Well, thank you for that. That was helpful. I hope people found it helpful here. Before we proceed further into the discussion of the issue generally, are there questions on the presentation that you just heard? All right. If somebody does have a question that occurs to them afterward, don't hesitate to raise the hand and say, I don't get it. Yes, sir. Now, in terms of the protocol for speaking, if you'd be kind enough to go up to the mic, anybody who wants to talk, identify yourself by name and address the questions to the chair, and to the extent it's appropriate, either the town administrator, ourselves, or real estate council will respond.
Okay, thank you. Mark Snyder, 23 Back River Road in Hingham. I have a question on the first page where it says, Chapter 40B states that a municipality is required to waive many local zoning requirements, and I think somebody said, I think you said, you know, it's most. It's beyond me. I don't understand how it is determined which ones get waived and which ones don't. And the authority of the zoning board to appropriately represent the residents and to have an appropriate due process of law.
Okay, good question. For some of you that are in the audience, earlier this year we had a fairly lengthy discussion with council, our real estate council, as it related to Avalon. And that question came up there as well. So Ms. Murphy is here tonight, and I'd ask her to speak to some of the constraints that are imposed upon the town with respect to conditions that can be imposed or not on zoning, and what the impacts are that we frequently envision when we see any kind of project, regardless of whether it's, you know, an affordable one or simply, you know, conventional subdivision or an apartment. So if
Mr. Chairman, if it would be okay, could I move my chair?
Sure.
Actually, I was looking for a chair, so I'll move your chair for you.
Okay, thank you.
I'm giving you chair away, I'm sorry.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. That would have been awesome.
So I think the question is, you know, what is meant by waiving many local zoning requirements? And what kind of factors cannot be considered?
As Ted indicated, it's difficult to take the subject, which is a very complicated subject, and reduce it to a PowerPoint presentation. I think really a full discussion to respond to the question would take more time than the board has tonight. But there is a concept under Chapter 40B of consistency with local needs. And the way, and it's not a perfect definition, it's not science. And so there needs to be a demonstration that local concerns outweigh the regional or local need for affordable housing. And again, that's not a scientific formula. I can tell you the definition of local concern is the need to protect health or safety of occupants of the project or the municipality, protect the natural environment, promote better site and building design, et cetera. So preserve open space. It all sounds like elements that the zoning board tries to address and protect in every project. However, the interpretation of Chapter 40B by the Housing Appeals Committee and subsequently all the way up to the Supreme Judicial Court is that more often than not, the courts have found that the need for affordable housing is more pressing than many of what residents of a community typically feel are the needs of the community. And it's the tension. So, for example, the the applicants are required to meet state wetland regulations, but more often than not are not required to meet local wetlands regulations, which are often more stringent. The same with Title V septic system. You have to meet the state standards more often than not 100% of the time, but more often than not, you do not need to meet the local standards. And so, and there are other instances, and the courts have said, the Zoning Board of Appeals cannot look at impact on schools. They can consider traffic impacts, but if it's an existing condition within the community that's a half a mile down the road, as a general rule, and I'm just speaking in generalities, that is not the responsibility of the 40B developer. And so that's the tension between the local concerns and what the state has deemed to be the regional need for affordable housing.
And of course, one of the biggest ones is the amount of units per acre.
Yeah.
Right,
Could you speak
exactly.
to the density? Because I think when, a lot of us, we see these projects and we're like, 300 units here or 96 units there. How does the density play into this local zoning requirements?
The density, the local zoning requirements are irrelevant with respect to density under the Chapter 40B. If they can demonstrate reasonably that the roads can withstand the traffic, or they are not creating a new traffic problem as opposed to exacerbating a problem the town already has, or the height, those are not aspects of the project that the zoning board really has a lot of say over. It's very rare, but occasionally a subsidizing agency, and those are the agencies that a developer will go to get a letter saying, yes, we think this project's appropriate in the site, may push back and say, you can't put 20 stories next to one-story single families. There may be occasions where a subsidizing agency would say that, but typically, if you're putting 4 stories next to 2 stories, I have not seen subsidizing agencies say that's not appropriate.
Thank you.
Susan, can I ask you a question?
Yep.
In terms of protecting the natural environment or protecting the municipality, is there any case law or any guidance on that? And because I know it came up at our meeting with the query in terms of the drought and the sparsity of water and the Ware River and so forth, and the concerns that there isn't enough water for all this development. I just didn't know if there was any guidance in that.
In this instance, it would be Aquarian, because they're the water provider in the town. They have to apply to Aquarian, the developer does. And so Aquarian would have to make a determination whether or not they can provide the water. So, in that case, if Aquarian hypothetically were to say, we can't provide that water, the watershed won't do it, we either need more draw approved by DEP or we can't do it, that would really be between the developer and Aquarian, not the town. What I've seen more recently, and in fact it came up with the Avalon project, was the question of the sewer. The capacity is there. However, I've been in meetings with the sewer department, the MWRA, where they're very upset about all the potential development and the flow that's going to go into their pump station that goes out to Deer Island. And there were a lot of questions about the capacity of the pump stations in Hingham and further down the line. That one, the case law is kind of split. It all depends on, is it just that our sewer pump was old and we need to replace it, which they might view as the town's responsibility, or are they really creating a capacity that the system's not designed for? So it's going to become very fact-specific on a case. I don't know if the case, there is case law, but it becomes very fact-specific as to whether it's an existing problem that a municipality has not addressed itself, or whether the project's really creating a new problem that didn't exist before.
And remember, too, that we currently in Hingham have 22% unaccounted for water. So 22% of the water that's withdrawn from the aquifer never makes its way to our pipes because of an aging infrastructure. It would seem to me that if we tried to ask for some sort of a moratorium, it would the status of the infrastructure would make that position difficult to defend.
And I don't have any expertise in the area, but I'm not so sure of that. I'm not saying we have an option, Mary, but
Yeah.
it is something that's jumping out at me in terms of the, I know I've told Aquarian has two options. You can either pay in to some type of fund, and the second one was a little less clear to me in terms of there has to be an adequate amount of water. So I'm just trying to think outside the box in terms of some issues that affect all of us in town.
I could look at the case law more specifically with respect to water. I know it came up recently with sewer, so I had looked at that case law, but I could look at it and report back to the town administrator.
Thank you.
So I think the takeaway, ladies and gentlemen, is that the review process is more relaxed under this particular statutory scheme, which is why you're more likely to see a 4 or 5 story building built in this town under this particular scheme. You know, for anyone who's been up in South Hingham and Linden Ponds, you can see that those are rather large structures. I mean, they're out of the way. You don't see them on the landscape, but that doesn't mean that a building of that nature could appear somewhere else where it is in plain view. So that's the dilemma that we're dealing with here. We're trying to, you know, craft a solution that allows us to have greater control over the kind of projects that are developed here in the town, within your neighborhoods. Perhaps most of you live down off of Beal Street or, you know, off of Ward Street, but these particular projects can find their way into oversized estate lots, perhaps in a redevelopment capacity, in an area where, you know, buildings sit dormant, but yet there's sewer and there's public transportation that make it attractive for purposes of construction. And it's not said to be an alarmist, but the reality is that this is an attractive town. And you have heard the town administrator just tick off a whole series of comprehensive permits that we're dealing with at various levels of the submittal. So we're here tonight. You know, we were hoping that the 2 Beal Street project would yield a response that would allow us to move forward on our affordable housing stock, provide a particularized housing. And we did get some responses. Unfortunately, they weren't what we had hoped for. We've paid in a significant amount of money for open space up in the center of town earlier this year. I don't know what the appetite of my colleagues is to, you know, spend a couple $1 million down on Beal Street for 12 acres of public property that we own and want to develop. So that's why we're having this conversation tonight. Give you the backdrop, give you an opportunity to weigh in. You know, we have one developer over there, 300 units. We know that's here, that's real. We're talking about the other end of the street right now. But you can't have that conversation without seeing both sides of the street. Now, Mr. White, earlier in tonight's meeting, before most of you arrived, talked about the changing nature of Beal Street. It has changed. In the last 25 years, it's gone from a residential street to kind of a mix. You have Back River, Beal's Cove, Hingham Woods, Chestnut Gardens, properties across the street, single-family homes sitting on the bottom of Baker Hill, Squirrel Hill Lane. So it really has been a street that's undergone a great deal of change. It is busier, yes. Is it attractive to development for purposes of nearness to public transportation? Yes. It's right near the train. It's right near the bus line. It's right near the boat. What other aspects does it have? Does it have sewage? I think it does. That's another attractive aspect. So this is what we're looking at, and we're trying to craft a solution that that works. We're trying to figure out something that works, and we're trying to address a town-wide problem, but with a particularized site. And I'd ask that, you respect the reality of the decision that we have to make. There's no real easy choices here. In my mind, and I'm speaking for myself personally, sitting here doing nothing is not an option. We have to come up with a solution. And we're soliciting your input. We want your thoughts. Yes, ma'am, in the back.
Hi, Carolyn Kaplan from Baker Hill Drive. I had heard that there was some kind of a safe harbor if a town has a plan in place for its development of 40B housing, and I don't know how, I'd like to know more about that, and maybe you can speak to how that,
Sure.
how that comes in.
You addressed your
But-
questions to the chair, but that's an excellent question, and we will speak to that if that's your only question.
So my other question was, I had also heard that the litigation might impact the ability to get a plan approved, and so I didn't know how, if that's the case, whether there should be some consideration about whether weighing the litigation, if that's
Sure.
the case, whether you
Yep.
weigh, does it make sense to continue the litigation if we can't get a plan approved because of the litigation, but the plan could save us in a bigger way and not potentially put all the impacts for housing in one location and give us more time to sort of sort it out and give us the ability to put things in different locations rather than just one spot. So that's
I'm going to
my-
give you the layperson's response to that, and then council may want to weigh in, and I think it's a great question.
Something we've considered.
Can I sit for your answer? Or-
Sure, sure. When the Avalon team came in months ago, former Selectman Laura Burns got up, and I think she said it rather well, that the town has pursued twin tracks here. One is to take the position that we've met the 10% by virtue of permitting Linden Ponds, or as I know it, as Erickson. But it's also beneficial to have an uncontested figure, and the town administrator has made that point repeatedly clear in the presentation that you've heard tonight. That not only advance our position legally, but in fact. And we've taken that position on several projects already, on Viking Lane, although I know it as Viking Lane only because that's how it was permitted as a subdivision, and SEB up on Main Street, across from the Lutheran Church. And the town has taken that position there, and we continue to take that position. But along the way, we've slowly increased the amount of affordable units within our housing stock. I'm going to turn the balance of your question over to council because this is a live issue still in litigation, and I want to weigh my words very carefully. So rather than be bound, I'm going to ask Ms. Murphy to finish that question off.
Okay.
If you can.
A housing production plan is a wonderful tool, and many towns have it. DHCD, in fact, in recent conversations, has been encouraging the town to pursue a plan. The town, it is not as if the town has not looked toward a plan in the past. In the
What is a housing plan?
A housing production plan is a plan by which the town looks at various areas of town in which housing maybe they would be appropriate, different types of housing types, whether it's housing, rental, and as affordable, with an affordable housing component, and whether it's a town project, whether it's potentially on private property, and then sets certain goals to create a certain number of units at different points along a timeline. And once you have the plan, that gives you a certain safe harbor, and if you stick to the plan, you continue to maintain that safe harbor. In the early 2000s, I want to say 2005, 2006, the then town planner did prepare housing production plans for the town. DHCD, Department of Housing Community Development, did not look favorably on a plan which showed or indicated the town's position that 100% of the units count. In addition, a housing
Linden Ponds.
Linden Ponds.
Yes.
The other thing is, you need a housing production plan as a safe harbor if you're not at 10%. If you're at, you could still have a plan, because it's always good to have a plan and zoning and master planning, but it's a tool that towns use in order to create safe harbors, in order to allow the affordable housing to progress the way that town would like to see it. It almost becomes a contradiction in terms, because if you're at 10%, you don't need the plan for a safe harbor. So the town faces a dilemma, and it's a policy decision. In order to have a housing production plan, in all likelihood approved by the DHCD, the town may very well have to concede the issue with Linden Ponds. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that the town would have to say, we don't believe they count, but the town would have to be willing to give up that assertion. And that is not obviously a legal decision, that is a policy decision for the town, and that is what the catch-22 for the town for a production plan.
Just to follow up on that,
Yeah.
Susan, so if the town were to take that step, there are two things that would happen. The first one is that the developments which are up on that screen, where we are currently in litigation, those would then have to go through the permitting process. And once an application gets, if an application gets in the door, it has to be taken up, it has to be heard. So if on May 20th, the town achieves 10%, or excuse me, if on May 20th, an application is filed, and on May 21st, the town achieves 10%, that project is in the door. So that's a consideration. Susan, my understanding with the production plans as well is that for DHCD to accept it, you can't just say, well, in the next 5 years, I'm gonna get 100 units, and I'm gonna maybe have some of them north, I'm gonna have some of them south. They want to see substance. They want to see, I think what they want to see is, we're going to take 2 Beal Street, and we're going to look at different possibilities for 2 Beal Street. So in some ways, the conversation we're having tonight could potentially inform that, but without some specificity, my understanding is it is less likely that a housing production plan which would create a safe harbor would be accepted.
It's going to be challenging, because you do need to identify specific geographic areas, and not, like you said, north and south.
We're going to be asking DHCD to give us a waiver from their rules while we've litigated against them several times disputing this point. And we're going to say in there, in the housing production plan, that we're over the 10%. It's a non-starter. As soon as we send it up there, they're just sending it back to us, because we're flaunting the fact that we don't agree with their rules in the plan itself. And we're asking for a safe harbor from the plan. So it's just not a practical solution.
Susan, is that accurate? Is that, in other words, if we have a good faith belief that we're at 10%, and we put a plan together anyway, are we automatically out the door, or will they consider it based on what we've proposed?
If the plan says that the town counts 100% of the units, which is, I believe, and I'd have to go back and look, I was looking at them months ago, that there is a reference to it in the plans that were done about 10 years ago. They didn't get anywhere with DHCD. Now, we haven't tried in 10 years, but, I don't think there's anything in the conversations that we've had with DHCD in the last couple of years that would indicate that they would change that
My question was this. Let's say that we have a good faith belief that we're at 10, just because we've asserted that. Right.
Yes.
So, but we want to come up with a plan because we think it's good for them, it's good for us. Are we saying that because we have a good faith belief that we cannot come up with a plan to be credited with a safe harbor? Is that what you're saying?
the safe harbor only kicks in if they approve the plan. They would have to be willing to approve the plan with a footnote. And we don't have an indication at this point that they would be willing to do that.
So, but if we come up with a plan and we were admitting we were below the 10%, they would give us a safe harbor. But because there's a question of that, we would be penalized for that?
If we submitted a plan to DHCD that said we were not, we agreed with their numbers and we repudiated the position that the town has taken, then we'd be like any other town that submitted a subsidized housing plan or housing production plan, and we'd be eligible for their safe harbors if the plan showed, as Selectman Power had said, showed reasonable steps towards accomplishing our goals. We can't say for the next 5 years we're going to put 1 unit in, and then in 5 years we'll put all 100.
I know it has to be
reasonable.
Thorough, but I thought whether we were below or above, we could still submit a plan and we may get a safe harbor either scenario. So
no, that is absolutely not. In my opinion, that's absolutely
no. I would say if we were legitimately at 16% and we wanted to come up with a plan as a community, which we still could.
That's our legal position.
Which we still could, and say, because we want to keep creating as a community affordable housing, I'm sure they'd be happy to work with a town that's over 10% who wants to have a plan. The friction there is, well, we won't need one because we're over 10, but we would still have a plan. But you don't, see, because if you're over 10%, you don't need a safe harbor because you're there.
So is that the rub there? To ask for a safe harbor, you have to concede that you're below the 10?
Yes.
That's the problem.
Okay.
Did that answer your question, ma'am? Stuff's not easy. I'm first to agree with you. All right, if you're going to keep chatting, but if there's other people, we'll do a double here, but if anybody else wants to talk, we got to let everybody
I guess my
speak.
follow-up would be that we haven't talked to them in 10 years about it. The indications are that they wouldn't.
No, we have talked to them.
Oh, we have,
had meetings last year.
Well,
we have regular
I guess the question is then, it's an administrative decision, right? Like, what kind of decision? Let me just, sorry, because my thought process, but their decision whether to approve the plan or not, is that an appealable decision or anything? Or is there any kind of how do you?
We're asking an agency to forego their rules with that plan. We're saying, we're going to give you a plan. We're not over the 10% threshold. Can you give us a moratorium so that XYZ development that's coming in doesn't come in? We want to do it logically and sequentially over the next few years.
Right.
They're willing to do that with us if we acknowledge that we're under the 10%. We're not willing to do that.
That we have to acknowledge the 10%?
Well, why would they give us a waiver if we're not going to acknowledge their own rules?
Yeah.
And that's the problem we have.
Okay, I'm done. Thank you.
Ms. Tully.
Melissa Tully, 29 Back River. Good evening, everyone. I actually have a procedural question first. So are we just talking 40B and all the rules, or are we discussing the options at this point?
I think I'd like to just have the audience comfortable with the landscape that we're working within, and then we can start to focus on what we should do on 2 Beal Street.
That's when I'll get up and talk.
Okay.
I wasn't clear where we were going.
All right. So does anybody have anything they'd like to add before we get into 2 Beal Street? Yes, ma'am.
My name is Kathleen Peters. I live at Tucker's Lane. It seems like this litigation has been going on for a really long time, and it seems to be pretty pivotal. Is there any sort of anticipation when that will finally get resolved? Because I think it's been going on for years.
It's a great question. And it's capable of repetition based on the amount of 40B projects that we encounter. There's some that we assert the 10% defense. Others, no. Right now, there is a live issue that's in play, so I'm very circumspect about speaking, except in broad terms.
I think, though, the council could walk you through how we litigate these cases, and I think you'll see through the explanation what happens.
I think because, and I can understand it from people who aren't dealing with it on a daily basis, that there may be a perception we've been in the same lawsuit since 2000 or 2001. There has been litigation. It hasn't been continual all through this. There was litigation at the time the permit was issued. It was dismissed on procedural grounds, not substantive grounds. We got no answer. There was a lawsuit by the town to try to get an answer. Are they affordable? Are they not affordable? 100% of them. The court punted. They said it wasn't ripe. And they said before the courts would decide this issue, the town would have to deny a developer on the basis that the town believes it's at 10%. The town did that in connection with the proposed Avalon project in Rec Park Drive. That project did not go forward. The town purchased the land. That case got dismissed. It never got decided. It most recently happened in connection with the SEB project on Main Street. That case is still currently pending, although, as Mr. Alexiadis indicated, that is now more likely to become a subdivision. That case is still pending. Technically, it may or may not go forward. We're waiting to see what the outcome of that is. In connection with the Viking Lane, also known as Riverstone, the town has asserted the 10%. The developer has objected. DHCD sided with the developer. That is very active litigation as we speak. We have litigation counsel working on it. So it all depends. If a project goes away for some reason, or it is resolved, as Avalon was down at the shipyard, then that opportunity to get an answer goes away because it becomes moot. And so that's why with each new project that the zoning board elects to assert this defense or this safe harbor, there is another chance that the town will engage in yet another litigation about it. And so until either the town gets to an uncontested place with 10%, the town elects to no longer pursue this position, or a court makes a decision, this will continue to go on. And I don't have a date for you.
And it's important to remember as well that, as Ms. Murphy said, that, you know, that this is done on a project-by-project basis. So while we are in the Housing Appeals Court right now for Riverstone, if the town wanted to deny a permit under that same premise, it would have to file another lawsuit. And
so it's like a case-by-case?
It's a case-by-case basis. So unless that litigation came to a conclusion and there was a decision, you could have a scenario where the town would be engaged in multiple litigations at the same time.
So you'd have to kind of fight each particular
Correct.
project as it
Each
came
case.
along.
Mr. Chairman, I think it'd be helpful if council also just talked a little bit about the relationship of DHCD and the court system that we have to use.
Right. The Housing Appeals Committee, which is the first stop, the first stop is actually DHCD. The zoning board asserts the position. A developer, as happened, I'll use Riverstone because that's a real case, objects. DHCD weighs in, so that's the first stop. They say, we agree with the developer, not the town. The town then, or the zoning board, to just be precise, has to make a decision whether or not to appeal DHCD's decision. In Riverstone, the zoning board asked council to appeal that decision. That appeal goes to the Housing Appeals Committee. The Housing Appeals Committee is an administrative, it's not a court within the court system. It is an adjudicatory board, but it is part of the DHCD. So you have an adjudicatory board that is technically part of the agency that's just denied you, that is now making the decision who to side with, the town or the developer and DHCD. So it's not...
Is Lowy still the chairman?
No,
there?
he's retired.
Oh.
Once that is completed, then if either party is unhappy, the next appeal is to the Superior Court. If either party is unhappy with that decision, you then go to the appeals court, and then potentially up to the Supreme Judicial Court. So it is a very lengthy process to actually get to an answer.
And when an attorney says lengthy, costly.
Yeah.
We spent, I think, over $100,000 on the SEB case, just to give you some feedback.
Yes, Ms. Smith. Good evening.
Hi, Christine Smith, 2 Park Circle. Sort of a big picture question. In this town, we seem to be pretty good at doing benchmarking, whether it be the Board of Selectmen, school committee, everybody does benchmarking. And there's obviously, Hingham is a AAA bond-rated town. What are other towns doing, and what direction are they taking? And have we asked them? Particularly with Erickson and Linden Ponds, as other Erickson, Linden Ponds developments, it's a big company, it's everywhere. What have they done? What has their experience been with affordable units? Is there any information that we can sort of gander from that research, as well as, sort of master planning in our own town? You have a lot of committees that do master planning. What's the water need? What's the school need? What's the sewer need? Do we all sort of communicate that, and does that help us with this direction? Because when you look at that list, it's a pretty big list. To me, it's a pretty scary list, some of the density of that housing. Timing seems to be really important with safe harbors, so how do we figure it out, and how do we really control where we want that growth to be? And not just, we have affordable housing, we've got a lot of different balancing acts that we need to do. And to add to, the other thing that comes to mind is CPC funding. We do a great job in this town of open space. How does CPC money come into any of this funding for affordable units? Because I think we do need affordable housing in this town.
So I'll answer two of those pieces. When 2 weeks ago, as we were contemplating the 4 assisted living proposals, I went onto the DHCD website and I just started looking at some of our benchmark communities to see where their SHI was, their stock. Where were they relative to the 10%? And off the top of my head, my conclusion was the DHCD recognized number of 8.5%. We're farther ahead of many of our peer communities. You see a lot of 3s, you see a lot of 4s, you see some 6s, and so that's where we are with respect to that. With respect to CPC, for those who were here before, 10% of CPC money by statute every year has to be applied to affordable housing, or if there aren't, for 10%. One of the things we talked earlier about, just very briefly, is, the CPC will be meeting this fall, but, 10% is a minimum, 10% doesn't have to be a maximum. But our annual CPC award every year is about $1 million, and based on our commitment with the Lehner property and the Heritage Museum, 2 very important projects, there's a couple $100,000 of that $1 million that's probably committed for next year. But certainly CPC is a vehicle and a source of funding for affordable housing projects.
I think Susan has the answer on the other question.
Go ahead.
Erickson/Linden Ponds type of project. Hingham has the only one.
In the state.
In the state, yep.
As a 40B.
As a 40B, yes. There are other Erickson projects in other communities, but they were not done as 40Bs.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I'm Harry Daniels. I live at 10 Heron Way in Back River. It seems to me, as I'm listening to this, and I'm relatively new to Hingham, but there's a dispute between whether Linden Ponds counts 100% or doesn't count 100%. Isn't there a procedure by which the town and DCD, it seems to me there's a controversy over that.
There is.
Mm-hmm. And there is a procedure called declaratory judgments that I'm aware of. I don't understand why it's not possible to seek a declaratory judgment on that issue.
I agree.
Outside the context of a particular project. If Linden Ponds counts 100%,
we did that.
we're over 10%.
I have you
If
answer
it
that.
doesn't, we're under 10%. I confess.
I've asked that exact same question many, many times.
And
Council
here's the
can
answer.
it for you.
We tried. The town brought a declaratory judgment action. It went to the Supreme Judicial Court, and they said it's not ripe until you deny a developer because you believe you're at 10%. So we went to the SJC, and they
exactly what you
said,
said.
you're not ripe. Go deny some poor developer, and then come back.
I knew the answer to my question was obvious.
Oh, if
That
it
was
were
a good
so. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, thank you. My name is Anita Ryan, and I'm at Baker Hill Drive. I just have kind of a follow-up question. I appreciate your question. If there are other towns that are way lower than us, What are they doing? I'm just curious. We should learn from them. Their plans.
One of the towns just permitted a Grantham development, and they paid the $2-3 million that they were asked for. So some of the towns that are affluent and have resources but are below the index are buying their way out of it that way.
So, could you say that again?
All right, so,
I don't understand.
So the Grantham, I'm sorry, I did jump a little bit, and excuse me, so please ask. We're so into the subject matter. So the Grantham proposal that we just received, essentially, instead of us selling land and receiving proceeds, they wanted us to give them the land and then give them money to develop this proposal. And it would have been 83 affordable assisted living units that would have counted towards our index. Other communities are doing that by reaching out to entities like that and buying those type of developments into their community so that they can pay their way out over that threshold.
Oh, so it's like the town is choosing which developer and going directly to them.
In some cases. In other cases, towns like us are beset in the same fashion, and they're fighting and arguing and debating. And in other communities, they don't also have the land space in certain spaces. So everyone is case specific. It's not actually a great thing to benchmark because it's not a uniform, we all have police departments and fire departments and school departments, and we all do things in basically the same way. Not when it comes to zoning. Every town, Gloucester and New Bedford and, Brockton and Acushnet or, Duxbury and Boston. Every town is different in New England, and so that's not an applicable.
Got it. Is there opportunity, and I'm just brainstorming here, for our council or to speak to council for other towns and just kind of brainstorm and see what they're doing and try to learn from each other? I don't know. I'm not trying to create more work for anyone.
I would say another aspect of it, and we see this not just with 40B, we see with all types of development, whether it's commercial development, subdivisions. Hingham is just a place that people want to live and where developers can sell homes at nice prices to people who want to live here. So you may see communities with a lower percentage, but they may not have the demand of the developers coming in for whatever market reasons. So there's so many different factors that the benchmarking doesn't apply. I will say that there is a lot of communication that happens on a daily basis on the second floor in the community planning department. And although it's not visible to the public, on any given day, the emails, phone calls, discussions that are going on between the second floor and what we call the third floor and between my office, it has been nonstop, particularly for the past year to 2 years. So it's happening. It's just a really tough, none of the choices are easy because every new development needs to go into somebody's neighborhood. And so that's why it's tough.
Thank you.
I think at this point, we've talked generally about the issue, so let's talk about 2 Beal Street. Yes, Ms. Burns?
Laura Burns, 96 Hersey Street. When you come to consider your various options, just one thing that I would like to suggest, this is my opinion, I hope other people agree with it, the idea that we might spend $2 million to support a project that will get us some distance down the road or very close or over the 10% does not strike me as ridiculous. I'm talking about CPC funds. We spent $13.5 million on open space over the course of our participation in the Community Preservation Act. And on affordable housing, which is one of the co-equal purposes of the CPA Act, we have spent $1.9 million. So there's a little bit of a disconnect there, and I understand that what people are saying right now is, okay, well, we committed all this money for open space for the Lehner property, we committed all this money for historic preservation and for the museum. I voted for all of them, of course. But part of what that says to me is, okay, they got in first with their desires and their proposal, and to me it's very, very important that we both build real affordable housing in Hingham and meet our 10% goal so that we can control what that affordable housing looks like. I think that is worth a considerable amount of our resources. So the idea, I understand that when it came in the Grantham proposal, it was a little bit hidden and seemed a little bit sneaky that they snuck in that $2 million that they wanted. I feel like if they put that right up front, that wouldn't necessarily been so outrageous a request. A lot of people ask me, why have we spent so little money on affordable housing? And my answer is, it's not because town meeting doesn't want to spend money on affordable housing, because people are always talking to me about that. It's that creating affordable housing projects, as big ones, is really difficult and really complicated. It's much more difficult and complicated than buying a piece of land that there is nothing on. So we have found ourselves able to spend a lot of money on open space. It's very, very hard to find the right project to spend a big chunk of change on to meet our affordable housing goals. So, and I'm not saying that any of there are problems with all of your options. I'm not actually even making a case for any one of them, but I'm saying that if we do pick a best option that will help us meet our goals, that to me, it doesn't seem odd, strange, funny, or inconceivable that we should choose to spend several $1 million to support that goal.
Yeah, and I would say I would agree with you on that. One thing that was also compelling to me on the Grantham proposal is that the tax credit assumption of these tax credits that they need was uncertain.
Right.
And as well, it was going to take more time. So under the right circumstances, you're bringing up another great variable. I would also say that unfortunately, I don't think we can apply it to the proposal we have for the assisted living, because I think we find that it's not going to work for some other reasons.
I understand that now, and I like the Affordable Housing Trust. I was very excited about assisted living because we don't have very much. We need it. For affordable assisted living, as far as I know, we've got ZIP. So that was extremely attractive as a kind of housing product that we need. But I understand that this proposal has other things wrong with it besides the fact that they wanted $2 million. All I'm saying is that I think the fact that they were looking for substantial community preservation contribution was not one of the things wrong with this proposal, and would not be wrong with other proposals that come down the pike. That's all.
Thank you.
Laura, I just say that initially, it hadn't even crossed my mind to contemplate a scenario like that, but I think we have to look at every option. And some proposals, such as assisted living, would be less impactful on the neighbors there than putting 100 or 150 units. I have a hard time with that right now, but in terms of looking at every option, we should.
Peters, Tucker's Lane. I would like to make a clarification. I am a member of the CPC committee, and just to clarify that the CPC committee doesn't make proposals, they entertain proposals. Right. So, for example, this year we did not get any housing proposals at all. So we take things in as they're given to us, but we don't generate them ourselves. I would like to comment just one thing on 2 Beal Street. When I looked at the option 4, the potential for significant revenues, I think it's important when we look at projects that we don't always look just at the project itself, but the operational costs of once the project is online. Mm-hmm. And so putting a large housing unit, I think it's important to also look at the long, and maybe this doesn't count because of the 40B, but to see the impact on the town services, schools, things of that nature. So I really question whether there'd be potential significant revenue from selling a piece of property if you took a 10-year view in terms of what that property might cost the town. So to be aware of that. And maybe if I could just make one other comment. A number of us came from the meeting about the Hingham Mutual property. So as a resident of Beal Street, we are really heavily bookended with 100 units here, 300 units here. I live in a community that already has 300 units, and so that street, and I realize that the street is changing, but we live there, and it seems like, I made the analogy that if you think of Hingham as a bunch of shoebox filled with marbles, when it comes to development, you tip the box and all the marbles end up on Beal Street, and nothing seems to happen in other parts of town. So I hope you get some consideration that we do live there, and that, if there's going to be more density, maybe it gets spread around town a little bit and not just always end up on Beal Street. Mm-hmm. Thanks.
When we were here 2 weeks ago, and I happened to see it just flicking the channels, the chief had made a point, because we were talking about assisted living. He said that he based on his understanding of the area, traffic is maxed out now, and he couldn't see something of that nature going in. I'm not saying, I don't know what's going to happen, but I remember him saying that they were already kind of maxed out in that on Beal Street. So if you try to put 120 was the number he used, it would, I believe it'd be devastating. So.
Well, and not to cast aspersions at our developers, but they just told us that it would have no impact on the street.
Yes, Ms. Tully.
Melissa Tully, 29 Back River. So I think I'm at the right point of the meeting to make my comments. I think so. And I'd like to thank all of you for your hard work. I think everybody's head here hurts just listening to the answers and trying to figure it out. I do agree with the using every tool in our toolbox, and having the double track has made us be able to negotiate with Avalon and produce something that gave us 190 units and got us to the point of a safe harbor. We're now at a very critical moment and a leadership moment on your part, and not an easy one for you to come to the decisions that you need to come to. But if we can get to that 10% by May 17th, this is monumental to the town, and it's paramount, I think, in my mind, that we try to reach that. And although there are no guarantees, because it could be that the permitting process takes longer, whatever needs to be done, there are just no guarantees in the world that that happens. It would be shameful that we didn't get out there and make that try. And my understanding is the fourth option of approximately 100 units on 2 Beal Street is what will give us that best opportunity to make that happen. I live on Beal Street. I, see the traffic. This has much less impact given its location, the fact that it has egress and access on access and egress on 2 different points, where the 300 unit is down at a dead-end street. And I really don't want this to be a discussion about that versus this, because it's really, if the 300 unit was going somewhere in South Hingham, I'd still be here saying we need to do this now. This is ripe, and I disagree with the SJC. We're very ripe if you look at the number of units we have. This is the only project on the table that can move us to that. Don't underestimate the townspeople. They understand this. This is, if there's going to be a special town meeting, this is of paramount importance. And I think the town's members would understand that, yes, we're having a special town meeting for a very, very good reason. And they will work with you to make this happen as best they can. I also would ask that if you do vote for option 4, or to put the 100 units on 2 Beal Street, that you dedicate whatever personnel or whatever resources you need to be able to march this along effectively. It's a very busy time of the year for you. You've got the budgets coming up. There's going to be a lot of things on your plate. And I'm here, the town's here behind you, ready to work and make this happen. I did have talking points I want to make sure. And I think you should look through this, the decision is should be looked through the lens of the entire town, north, south, east, west, because it really affects the entire town. I think that covers it. Thank you very much.
Ms. Corey, welcome.
Thank you.
Nice to see you again.
Sarah Corey, 335 North Street, who lives at the other end of Beal Street. I'm shocked at the 100 houses proposed to go into an area of critical environmental concern right next to Tucker Swamp, right next to our back river. That the town will be proposing such a dense project at this site is a sort of a monumental concern for me, obviously, as someone who is very close to that area. But I think as a town, we should be concerned about the location and the fact that this is an area. Tucker Swamp goes right into the back river. This is right next to Tucker Swamp. It's next to the DPW. It is next to near the train, and that's a great thing. But 100 units of housing there is a massive amount. And I just, I can't emphasize enough the environmental concerns, but I do feel like My end of town is being sold out for these 40Bs. This will be the third 40B on Beal Street, and that's not talking about the one that's proposed down at the very end, and that's also not talking about the one at Avalon Bay. The impact on Beal Street traffic in the last 10 years has been logarithmic. I cannot get out of my driveway sometimes for 4 minutes. I look at the clock and I sit there and I cannot safely exit my property with my children in the car for 4 minutes. You add 100 more units of housing on that street, exactly there, that's going to be a lot harder for me. Plus the 300 going, or whatever, whatever else is going to happen, and maybe those 300 change. But no matter what, we are seeing it's going to get much worse, and I can't get out of my driveway. I can't get out of my driveway. I mean, I don't know how else to say. I feel like we are being sold out as a neighborhood, as a part of town. Okay, let's just put them all down there. Let's just put them there. We'll fight these ones, but we're not going to fight those ones. And in fact, not only are we not going to fight it, but we're going to put in a friendly 40B. A friendly 40B, I'm not sure, how that works for me and my neighbors. And I think a lot of them would be surprised that there were these 100 units proposed today. I don't think that any of my neighbors had any idea. The last major town survey, citizens voted that they wanted to keep the streetscape the same. They like the streetscape of Hingham. That's very important to them. The last Selectmen's project that went on Beal Street did not even think about the streetscape. Didn't even consider it. Didn't even look into the fact that the townspeople said, we want the streetscape to remain the same as much as we can. So when the town is violating that wish of the citizens, the majority of the citizens, then it becomes a concern. And I'm really concerned. I mean, this is obviously going to impact my life considerably, but it's also going to impact the entire Beal Street corridor. And I think 100 units of housing may seem like a drop in the bucket compared to 280 here and 300 there, but every drop matters. And the fact that the town is considering this drop in this area where we're experiencing the greatest increase in housing seems really irresponsible to me. How about looking at some other areas? I understand we own this land. I understand that, but there have to be other areas that can take this burden and not just Beal Street. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sarah, if I may, just to clarify, maybe not so much for you, although if there's some confusion, I will, but for the folks at home, as far as I know, the town hasn't taken a position to do anything. One of the things that I wanted to do 2 weeks ago when we had one potential option was to try to get people to come together, whether it be tonight or even in the future, because this is going to be an ongoing issue, is to hear what people, especially on Beal Street, from all across in North Street, what their thoughts were, because I was very hesitant to do much of anything unless and until I heard from the people that are most affected. That's how I operate. That makes sense to me. That's how I'd want it to be in my backyard. So I treat everybody the same. I want to make sure that the folks have an opportunity to speak tonight before I make a decision. So I know Ted has proposed that, but that absolutely does not mean that I have agreed with it. I would never make a decision, no matter who's proposing, until I heard from everybody and felt comfortable with it. And it may be that I don't feel comfortable with it based on what the chief had to say 2 weeks ago. But that discussion may come later. But I'm just letting you know the decision, as far as I'm concerned, has not been made.
I would just also add, Paul, that, as we're looking at this and as what we're talking about, let's all remember that the ultimate decision maker on this decision, like pretty much every important decision in this town, is town meeting. And certainly we have different groups that can advance business before town meeting, but it is town meeting's decision to make.
Yes, Mr. Matthews.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for allowing me to speak. I'm Ted Matthews, 102 Hersey Street. I am speaking as a resident tonight. I'm just focused on the upper quadrant there, the Beal Street quadrant, which is getting, piled on. And to talk about the ACEC, which is a very sensitive area, 900 acres that includes Bear Cove Park, Great Esker Park, the entire river up until Jackson Square, all the water surface, underneath the water surface. There's a 500,000 alewife herring that go up into Whitman Pond every year. They are very sensitive to any change in the environment. And you're talking about a lot more cars, a lot more pollution, a lot more development. I would say, you know, this selling the Selectmen's property is unfortunately a desperation move. I would get behind option 3, no action at this point, try to figure it out. You guys are doing an incredible job trying to figure out alternatives. These plans have to be scaled back. 100 units is too many at 2 Beal Street. 300 units at the other end of the street is way too many. That property cannot handle it. So that's what I have to say.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. You know, well, you want to say anything?
I think I already said what I need to say.
Well, are we going to deliberate?
Well, I want to just kind of.
Yeah.
My view is that this isn't a 100 on one end and 300 on another choice that we're making here. I don't see it as that. This is an aggressive response by the town to reach its, in fact, 10% figure. And if we're successful in doing so, then the project at the other end of the street will by necessity have to go in significant substantive change, both with respect to density, layout, and circulation. So, where's Miss Corey? Did she leave? Oh, he's here. I respect your unhappiness, and I understand why. I'm just extremely uneasy about no action, because that leaves us with the 10% defense down at the far end of Beal Street with a determined applicant who's stuck with the 300 unit figure, hasn't come off it one bit.
Also building in an area of environmental issues, it might...
Exactly.
The profile of it, though, Paul.
Understood, Sarah. So there's my dilemma. Would I like to put anything there? That's not my world. I don't want to see neighborhoods pitted against each other. I think that's, we're heading in the wrong road. South Hingham's got its share of 40B units too, let me tell you. I mean, there's 2,000 units up on Whiting Street. It's called Linden Ponds. There's Derby Brook. There's Whiting Village. There's others in the pipeline, that aren't even being talked about. This is the reality. And Dave Ellison, 2 weeks ago, laid it out beautifully. We're trying to get a hold of our own zoning so that our neighborhoods maintain the kind of semblance that we've become accustomed to, which motivates us to live here. These developers want to develop here because it's a great town, it's a great community. We're trying to address a lot of things with a single decision here. Get to that 10% figure. That doesn't mean that no affordable housing thereafter will ever be considered, but it'll be considered in a different way, so that it integrates itself in more effectively and harmoniously with the community, as opposed to, what we have to deal with. We're limited in what we can do. So that's my thought process. I'm just telling you straight out. Sarah and I, counsel there, went up to the SJC as named plaintiffs fighting this issue in 2000, and we got thrown out on our ear. We've been at it a long time, and I respect the opinions deeply. But we're close. We're very close. And, with all due respect to you, I want to do what's right for the town.
And so do we.
Yep, I get it.
I mean, it's me, but it's also an area of environmental critical concern.
Duly noted.
So a couple thoughts. First of all, I want to thank everybody for being here. Some of you did double duties in meetings, and I appreciate your taking the time to listen and understand the dilemma and some of the trade-offs. And I think the more we can all understand this, which is very complicated, and I'd thank those who helped and counsel for, helping us all with this. Within the last couple of weeks, I went over and I walked the Selectmen's parcel, walked through and saw different places. It's helpful to kind of envision what could be there. I think, like many people, I was really disappointed that the affordable assisted living didn't come to fruition. I thought it was a good project. As Laura Burns once said, I think it was a good project in a good location, and it had a lot of different benefit. I've also come to the conclusion that an assisted affordable, we could put another proposal, an RFP out in 6 months. We could put another one out in a year for an assisted living affordable housing complex. I don't think we're going to get any different responses. And I appreciate that we all worked hard towards that, but I don't see that as a viable option. My concern is that if we don't do something, we're going to have 300 units at the other end of Beal Street, bucking up in some very environmentally sensitive areas, and the potential for many, many more units to come in the door. And as we started this conversation, with no ability to influence the density, the size, the location. Remember that, until we hit that, you can go into an area that's zoned office park and put housing up. So really, our ability to control our zoning is very, very compromised. And I think the way I'm looking at this, if we do nothing tonight, we are inviting Alliance to come in. We are losing our ability to try to influence that. And I'm looking at 300 units here and 100 units here. The other thing I would say is that in the last week or so, and thinking about this possibility, we really pushed ourselves, the folks sitting at this table, to look at a timetable. And I will tell you, I've had my skeptical moments, because I will tell you that to do option 4, there's not a lot of room for slippage. It's the 2-minute drill. You're down by 6. You have 1 timeout, and you can't afford a lot of slippage. I've come to the conclusion that it's doable, but I also realize that there may be some things out of our control where it might not work. I think Mrs. Tully made a great point, which is, given the intensity of the work right now, I might ask Ted and Tom to look into the possibility of some additional resource help to just perhaps even help with, if the board goes ahead with this effort, so that we can make sure that the other important business of the town, is done. I think the points that people are making, that this maybe feels like a little bit of desperation. I feel a little bit of that. And I'm looking and saying, if we do 100 units on Beal Street and we're successful, we've got 48 to 65 more units to 2030. And I think we have some opportunity to perhaps approach that in a little bit different way, so that maybe we don't feel that sense of desperation. But, to me, I look and say, I feel like we have to pursue this. It is not, I feel like we have a lot of different options. I'm I don't love option 4, but I like option 4 a heck of a lot better than I like the other options. And I also understand that at the end of the day, this will be town meeting's decision. So we can create the venue to have this conversation again. It's going to be in November. It's got to be in November. We don't have time. May 17th is going to be upon us. We'll have that conversation again, and we will allow a greater part of this town to join in on this conversation. So that's where I'm kind of coming out on this.
Thank you. I want to thank everybody, and it is a very difficult position because personally, I don't want 300 units to go down in that end of Beal Street, and I'm very concerned about the 100 units down the other end of Beal Street. And one of the reasons I'm concerned is that I know up to maybe a week or so ago, we thought we were going to have assisted living units, and we were saying that this is good, it's less impact on the community, on Beal Street. There was less traffic, there was maybe less environmental impact. I know that people still thought there was impact, but it would be much less. And I thought one of the things we were saying at the time is this is much better than putting 120 units in there. Now, within a week's time, really, we now have option 4 that says let's put 100 units in there. I don't really know what the impact's going to be on the community. Maybe everybody didn't know about it. I know we have a great crowd, and I'm very appreciative of everybody here, and town meeting will be the ultimate decision maker, but I don't really feel comfortable in a week's time not knowing what all the impacts are going to be, traffic and otherwise, environmental, to just vote this thing to town meeting. And I may be wrong. Maybe ultimately it's town meeting is the ultimate democratic tool here and everybody makes the decision, but I just don't feel real comfortable, and I certainly respect anybody who has a different opinion because this is a very difficult issue. We all know we have to get somewhere. How we get there is really tough because sometimes you're picking one part of a town versus the other. It makes me very uncomfortable to have to do that. At some point we have to make decisions, but I'm just saying I don't feel comfortable tonight with a week's turn, not knowing all the details about what the impact of this 100 units is, to say, yeah, let's put it on for a town meeting. Let's do that. I feel like I'm affirming that that is the project that I want, and I can't do that right now.
Grantham was 83?
Correct.
So it's a 17 additional unit, different in nature. Certainly the traffic analysis will, rely on different models going forward. There's 12 acres on one end with 100, 12 acres on another with, 300. I agree with, this is not easy, that there's no, I see the ZBA sitting here, standing here, listening passively, but, whatever submittal, if it comes in as a 40B, will be in their wheelhouse. I want to get to the 10%, ladies and gentlemen, uncontested. I really, really do. I'm sick of dealing with this kind of issue in town. It's divisive. I think it tends to pit groups against each other. I think that we can have a better face on our town going forward on zoning, submittals that are more consistent with what we as a community like to see here. We have the ability to shape it to a certain degree, with a friendly, 40B in terms of a lip. What's the turnaround time on getting an RFP out on the street?
We'll have one out next Wednesday.
All right. Well, I'll entertain a motion that the board do nothing with respect to this particular site. All right, so we're not going to do anything. That's not an issue.
I asked Tom to prepare some potential votes for you in case you got the point.
Ted and Tom, correct me if I'm wrong, but based on the timetable, and we've got a lot of paper here on the desk, so I can't put my hands on it, but on the timetable that's been put together, if we defer this decision beyond tonight's meeting,
You effectively do nothing. Let me be really clear with you.
Right, because we have to call the town meeting, we have to, the other part of this is we're looking at a timetable was making sure that that the ZBA would have enough time to have a hearing. And I believe that in our timetable, the ZBA window for hearing would be 90 days, which was very similar to Avalon.
The entire process we mapped out, and we're doing this in slightly less time than
Yep.
a company did it that bought a piece of property that is in the business of doing this, that targeted this. Who knows what they did beforehand? So it's a challenge, and we need to be able to give them, a particular bidder, time to do their due diligence to be able to propose this. So, we're looking at a town meeting on November 14th. We've looked at the calendar. We can't effectively have one later than that and allow the project to go forward. So why spend the money at town meeting and not be able to get it in proper?
So in other words, what you're saying to me is, even if we wanted to maybe come back at a later date and vote option 4, it will no longer be available to us?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
But on the other hand, you can vote option 3. If you voted option 4 tonight, you could vote option 4 at any point in time between now and when you executed on option 4. You could stop the game. You could stop this at any point in time.
So
but if you don't start now, you'll never be able to
So
finish.
if we get RFP responses back and we're not satisfied with any of them,
You stop.
then we stop. And procedurally, how many days would, I know in Hingham, when we have a town meeting, we like to call those in as much time as possible, but
So
in this
we've set up a timetable, again, very tight, but we've set up a timetable where we'll have responses back to the RFP by the end of October, the week before, October 21st. We'll give you, at your next meeting, a review of those RFPs so that you can make a decision on award. Now, why would we want to do that? Because that's really the last day for you to call a town meeting. October 25th would be for a meeting on November 14th. It's within the legal constraints of time allowed, and it gives us time to put a document in front of everybody. We have a requirement to mail a document to everybody about the special town meeting. Clearly, it's not what we traditionally have done on a town meeting, and so we're going to have to spend a lot of extra time getting the word out about the meeting so people know. But those are the accomplishable time periods.
Thank you.
Do either one of my colleagues want to make a motion to accept the Grantham proposal? All right, so
We can't anyway, right?
we don't have any appetite for that as well.
Not as it was written, right, Chet?
No, you could accept the Grantham proposal.
Oh, okay, I thought it didn't fit the criteria.
No, it fits the criteria.
Okay.
We didn't have a criteria that says they couldn't ask us for money. I didn't think to put that in.
But let me ask you, I don't mean to belabor this, but
I just didn't consider someone would ask me for
just
money.
so I know, because I didn't know that was still on the table. So if you did accept it, then you still have to come up with a way in a timely manner to get the $2 million, right?
Correct. We'd have to, well, actually, in the Grantham proposal, what we would do is go to town meeting in the spring and get that $2 million. But I wonder whether or not they'd be able to move through that permitting process. And that was the conclusion of our group, that they weren't going to be able to permit this by May 17th in any way, shape, or form.
Right.
And if DHCD didn't grant their tax credits, they'd have to wait another year, which would eliminate it.
All right, so we're not going to do nothing. We're not going to vote to, well, it's not funny, because this is hard stuff, and, you know, we've been elected, we're citizens like you, we're volunteers essentially, and we're trying to make decisions that are in the best interest of the town. We've determined that the Grantham Group proposal is a non-starter for us. So, in light of that, I'll entertain a motion to vote to authorize the town administrator to issue an RFP for a development project at 2 Beal Street under Chapter 40B
We have that.
for rental housing.
We'll do that first. Eventually, we'll do that.
Yes, okay.
We're all set.
Such that all units will qualify for the town's subsidized housing inventory. Any award for this use under such RFP shall be subject to town meeting approval under General Bylaw Article 5A, Section 4A.
So moved.
Second, discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No.
Okay.
We need that second vote.
vote to reject all responses. I'll entertain a motion to reject all responses received in connection with the RFP for 2 Beal Street dated June 14th, 2016.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We're moving forward, people. I want to thank all of you for coming tonight.
Thanks for listening.
I hope you continue to stay engaged. This is just the beginning of the journey.
We have no other votes. We have no other votes. Right? Tom, any other votes? You can adjourn if you want.
Yeah, you think we have a choice? It's not like I like, having the...
I'm supposed to have a flat top, but I don't know. I'm too lazy to make it.
Are we adjourning?
I had my bag in there, just
That's it for your agenda, unless you want to go to reports and administrator. But you can also just adjourn.
What?
You can adjourn right now.
Adjourn.
Motion adjourned?
Second.
Aye.